Good morning, America. Welcome to Right Side Broadcasting Network Live. I'm Robert McNeely. A big news day, as always, here, not only in the friendliest village on the plains, but of course, Washington, D.C. President Trump, now 80 days in office, truly making America safe again, making America strong again, making America wealthy again, of course, healthy again, with the assistance of Secretary Bobby Kennedy, but also making America great again. These tariffs have been such a good plan in place, and we're seeing in live time right now the art of the deal. President Trump really taking away those tariffs temporarily for many countries, a 90-day memorandum, and putting a halt on those tariffs specifically focused on the Chinese Communist Party. We're now in the middle of this tariff battle with the empire of China. So this will be fun to watch this play out, because we know President Trump bringing billions and billions of dollars back here to the United States. We actually have playback, in case you missed it this week, of Karoline Leavitt, the White House press secretary, covering all you need to know from the wins in week 12 of this great administration. And if that video is ready, we could toss that over to you now so you can catch that playback and catch you up on everything that's gone on in this very important week in Washington, D.C. But first, we're going to do Colonial Metals Group, a great sponsor here at Right Side Broadcasting Network Live. If you're looking for retirement plans, and if you have properties, assets, perhaps that 401k or even an IRA, you can actually roll those two plans into tangible gold and silver. So think about this right now. As you scan that QR code, save those monies coming in and the monies you have saved by going to freegoldguide.com/RSBN. There you will find the no obligation 2025 guide that's endorsed by great patriots like Judge Jeanine Pirro, among others, really following the footsteps of billionaires like Warren Buffett. And even though he might be on the left side of history, he knows how to manage his money. That's by putting it in the stock market, also looking to gold and silver, something that's been tangible since 1971, skyrocketing 7,000% in its value, regardless of the government, regardless of who's in charge. Colonial Metals Group knows how precious gold and silver can be for your commodities and your best bet against inflation. So as the Chinese Communist Party plays war games with Taiwan, make sure that you play gold games with your wallet and secure your financial future. Colonial Metals Group, thank you to Paul Stone and his great team for sponsoring us here at Right Side Broadcasting Network Live. AngelPaste.com as well, a great miracle cream. The vitamin B infused original cream of theirs truly takes your dry hands away and all of your dry skin. In addition to doing that, they have the orange option, full of vitamin C, all good immunity boosters. They also have a natural mosquito repellent. They know a thing or two about this, being in Spring, Texas, just outside of the Gulf of America. Of course, that tropical climate welcomes those pesky mosquitoes in the summertime, so a good thing to have. Also, a facial spray for the guys. So guys out there, make sure that you use this cream because you'll look good, and you can also grab that tackle box at the same time. So products for men, products for women. Experience the miracle today. AngelPaste.com, a great Christian-based company that hires veterans in the Lone Star State of Texas. Thank you for sponsoring us here at Right Side Broadcasting Network. And now live, well, to the other day, of course, Press Secretary Karoline Leavitt absolutely batting 1,000 during the Los Angeles Dodgers visiting this week at the White House, but of course covering tariffs and everything this administration is working on. We'll toss it to Karoline now.
You guys ready? Great. Good afternoon, everybody. How are we? Good to see you all. I have a few announcements off the top today. On April 14th, President Trump will welcome President Bukele of El Salvador for an official working visit here at the White House. They will discuss El Salvador's partnership on using their Supermax prison for Tren de Aragua and MS-13 gang members, and how El Salvador's cooperation with the United States has become a model for others to work with this administration. On April 17th, President Trump will welcome Prime Minister Giorgia Meloni of Italy for an official working visit at the White House as well. The president's thoughts also remain with the families and communities experiencing devastating loss from the severe storms and flooding affected several states across the central U.S. President Trump approved emergency declarations for Arkansas, Kentucky, and Tennessee, allowing FEMA to provide federal assistance like equipment and resources to support state and local emergency response officials who are leading this response on the ground. Last night, the Supreme Court delivered a massive legal victory to the Trump administration and allowed us to continue removing foreign terrorist invaders under the Alien Enemies Act. This was a smackdown to a rogue left-wing, low-level district court judge who have relentlessly tried to stop President Trump from using his core constitutional powers as head of the executive branch and as commander-in-chief. The highest court in the land made it clear that the President of the United States has the power to protect our homeland and forcibly remove foreign terrorists who pose a grave threat to families and communities. Thank you to the Supreme Court for upholding the rule of law and protecting the Constitution. Our message to the monster Tren de Aragua and MS-13 terrorists still hiding illegally inside our country is clear. Deport yourself now, or you will be locked up and sent back to your home country. On another matter, the historic Liberation Day announcement last week by President Trump made it very clear that the era of American economic surrender is over. President Trump is no longer going to allow American workers and companies to be ripped off at the hands of foolish trade practices that shipped away millions of high-paying jobs and hollowed out communities across the country. It's America first, all the way. And despite fear-mongering by the media, the world is clearly responding to President Trump's approach. Just yesterday, President Trump held a bilateral meeting with Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu here at the White House. The Prime Minister pledged to immediately eliminate America's trade deficit with Israel and remove their trade barriers. Israel's proactive approach should serve as a model for the rest of the world. Also yesterday, the President spoke with Japan's Prime Minister, who wants to negotiate as well. The President also spoke to the acting President of South Korea this morning. He has tasked Secretary Bessent and U.S. Trade Representative Jameson Greer to lead these talks. In total, since the Liberation Day announcement, nearly 70 countries have already reached out to the President to begin a negotiation. Countries are falling over themselves to reform their unfair trade practices and free open their markets to our country. Why? Because these countries greatly respect President Trump in the sheer power of the American market. These countries realize they've gotten filthy rich over the past few decades by imposing substantial tariffs on American-made products and ridiculous non-monetary barriers to block out American industry. The jig is up. Past American presidents sat by and let this happen, but President Trump stood up for our country, and he is saying no more. The President's message has been simple and consistent from the beginning. To countries around the world, bring us your best offers, and he will listen. Deals will only be made if they benefit American workers and address our nation's crippling trade deficits. America does not need other countries as much as other countries need us, and President Trump knows this. He's going to use the leverage of our markets and our country to the advantage of the people he was sworn in to represent. On the other hand, countries like China, who have chosen to retaliate and try to double down on their mistreatment of American workers, are making a mistake. President Trump has a spine of steel, and he will not break, and America will not break under his leadership. He is guided by a firm belief that America must be able to produce essential goods for our own people and export them to the rest of the world. A strong America cannot be solely dependent on foreign countries for our food, medicines, and critical minerals. And America must always maintain a robust defense supply chain. Reprioritizing and strengthening our manufacturing industry are essential national and economic security issues of the utmost importance to President Trump. By focusing on supercharging the onshoring of American manufacturing, the President is already delivering on his promise to usher in an economic golden age for our country. Just look at Friday's jobs report, which smashed expectations for the second straight month. The American economy added 228,000 jobs, nearly 100,000 more jobs than economists predicted, and the fourth highest month for private payroll growth in the past 2 years. There was also a sharp increase in transportation, construction, and warehousing employment. And in just 11 weeks, President Trump has secured more than $1.5 trillion in private sector investment. This is $500 billion more than Joe Biden secured in his entire term. This record-breaking private sector investment will create roughly 350,000 American jobs and counting. If you add up all of the investment pledges from foreign governments, President Trump has secured an incredible $5 trillion in total investments already. In the months ahead, President Trump's pro-growth economic agenda will be fully realized. The largest deregulatory effort in American history is underway. Unnecessary, burdensome, costly red tape is being eliminated by this entire federal government every day, driving down costs and massively boosting small businesses. So far, President Trump's deregulation effort has already saved Americans more than $180 billion, equivalent to $2,100 per family of 4. The president's drill baby drill energy agenda, which he will discuss later this evening in the East Room, is capitalizing on the abundance of natural resources under our feet to generate more affordable electricity, cheap gas, and quality new jobs. All of this will combine to end the Biden-imposed cost of living crisis that's absolutely crushed American families. Under President Trump, the American energy industry will lead the globe over the next century, delivering lower prices and significantly strengthening our country's economic position. At the president's direction, Republicans in Congress are working quickly to pass one big, beautiful bill, which will also include the largest tax cut in American history. As President Trump has said, the House must pass this budget resolution quickly. Here in our new media seat today, we have Jasmine Wright, the White House reporter for Notice. Notice is a nonprofit and nonpartisan news site which launched in early 2024. They've gained millions of readers across the country since. Newsroom's goal is both to inform readers and train the next generation of politics and policy journalists. They also partner with state newsrooms and to give local communities more knowledge of what their representatives are doing in Washington, D.C. With that, please kick us off, Jasmine.
Thanks so much, Caroline. A couple questions for you. The first one being, can you explain the White House's evolution from this is not a negotiation on tariffs to countries should pitch us and start negotiations on tariffs?
As the president said yesterday, Jasmine, both things can be true at the same time. And it is a non-negotiable position that the United States has faced a national security and economic crisis because of the unfair trade practices by countries around the world. As for the president, I have maintained this position. The entire administration has always said that President Trump is willing to pick up the phone and talk. And the president met with his trade team this morning, and he directed them to have tailor-made trade deals with each and every country that calls up this administration to strike a deal and listen. And each and every one of these trade deals should be tailored and unique based on that country's markets, based on that country's exports, the imports here in the United States of America. What makes the most sense for the American worker and for our industry? The president is focused on putting America first.
So was the evolution not factored in or determined by kind of the tumult in the stock market? Was that not a part of the consideration to start making these negotiations and deals?
Again, I would reject that there was an evolution. On day one, we had said that the president will always pick up the phone for other nations and other companies that call this administration. The president always has a listening ear, and it's a non-negotiable fact that America has faced a national security and economic crisis for many decades, and President Trump is just the first to address this.
And then my last question, how will negotiations change how much revenue the White House is planning to make from the tariffs?
Well, that has yet to be seen, but as the president said, the reciprocal tariffs, which will continue to go in effect as these deals are negotiated and ongoing, will generate trillions of dollars in revenue to the United States. And this is twofold. The president wants to onshore jobs here to the United States of America. He wants to boost our manufacturing industry. He also wants to tackle these crippling deficits with almost every single country around the world. Jackie.
Thanks, Caroline. The Treasury Secretary, Scott Bessent, warned that some of these negotiations might take up to months, that we could be doing this through April, May, and into June. And then you had Kevin Hassett say it's going to take a lot for the president to put his signature on the line because he wants to make sure there's a good deal for America. Is the president operating on any sort of a timeline or deadline where he wants this completed by?
Well, we always move at Trump speed here at the White House, which is incredibly fast. I know you all know that from covering this White House day to day. The president likes to get things done, but he's very much focused on ensuring that these deals are good for the American worker, they are good for American manufacturing, and again, that they tackle these crippling deficits with these countries. All options are on the table for each country, but again, these are going to be tailor-made deals. They are not going to be off-the-rack deals, as the president has called it, and he has directed his entire trade team to be part of this effort. So that includes Secretary Bessent and our National Economic Director, Kevin Hassett. It also includes Secretary Lutnick, Peter Navarro, the entire trade team, Jamison Greer, who was on the Hill today. Everybody who was involved in this incredible, fair, reciprocal trade agenda will continue to be involved in negotiating these deals.
And then yesterday, Goldman Sachs put out a research note. It put the odds of a recession at 45% within the next 12 months, up from 35%. But Peter Navarro guaranteed last night no recession. Does the president agree with him on that? I know that the president in the past has been leery of making definitive statements on that.
I can speak for the president, and I can speak for the optimism that he sees in our economy every day. Again, when you talk about the massive deregulatory efforts that are happening across the board, when you talk about how oil prices are down, gas prices are down, egg prices are down, we're cutting costs for the American worker, for the American consumer. We also see trillions of dollars of investments pouring into this country every day, and we're working hard now on the tariff side of the president's economic agenda. But don't forget, the next side of this is tax cuts, and we're counting on Capitol Hill to get those done, the largest tax cuts in history.
Does that mean that without those tax cuts coming through, that the likelihood of a recession is greater?
No, that's not what I said. I'm just saying be mindful of the whole of government economic approach that this administration is taking every day. Sure. Go ahead.
Thank you, Caroline. You just said that one of the reasons these tariffs are going into effect is that some countries have been ripping off the United States, but some of the tariffs target countries like Madagascar, Bangladesh, with very high levels of poverty. So can you explain how the president wants to correct the deficit with those countries? Is there a plan, for example, to onshore the textile industry that these countries are known because, and, you know, just like, can you be specific about those like low income?
Sure. Well, first of all, the reciprocal tariff rates that were implemented by country were focused on the monetary tariff that those countries have imposed on the United States, but also the non-monetary tariff barriers and the regulations, if you will, that have been put into effect over the years, making it harder for America to export to these countries. These were very carefully crafted numbers. There was also a 10% baseline tariff across the board, as well, as you know. Moving forward, the president will talk to any country that picks up the phone to call, and I can tell you the phones have been ringing off the hook, wanting to talk to this administration, this president, and his trade team to try to strike a deal. And it's because the world knows that they need the United States of America. They need our markets. They need our consumer. The president has a lot of leverage on his side because he has the best economy and the best country in the world that he leads, and he knows that. And it's about dang time we finally have a president who uses that economic leverage to benefit American workers. And that's what the president is trying to do. Maggie.
Caroline, thanks. Does the president endorse something that Howard Lutnick said on television this weekend, which was that the army of millions and millions of human beings screwing in little screws to make iPhones, that kind of thing is going to be moving to the U.S.? Is that how the president envisions manufacturing shifting? And if so, how long would that take, roughly?
The president wants to increase manufacturing jobs here in the United States of America, but he's also looking at advanced technologies. He's also looking at AI and emerging fields that are growing around the world that the United States needs to be a leader in as well. So there's an array of diverse jobs, more traditional manufacturing jobs, as you discussed, but also jobs in advanced technologies. The president is looking at all of those. He wants them to come back home.
But iPhones specifically, is that something that he thinks is the kind of technology that can move to the U.S.?
Absolutely. He believes we have the labor, we have the workforce, we have the resources to do it. And as you know, Apple has invested $500 billion here in the United States. So if Apple didn't think the United States could do it, they probably wouldn't have put up that big chunk of change. Elena.
Hi, Caroline. It's clear the president has gotten the world's attention with these tariffs. Is he considering at all potentially holding off on imposing some of them before the deadline, or maybe later reversing them because he's having these negotiations and having these good talks with other leaders?
The president was asked and answered this yesterday. He said he's not considering an extension or a delay. I spoke to him before this briefing. That was not his mindset. He expects that these tariffs are going to go into effect. And you said something very important, Elena, in your question. You said the president has captivated the attention of the world. Absolutely he has. And it's about time we have a president in the Oval Office who is putting the world on notice and is putting the American people first and, again, is using the leverage of the United States to negotiate good trade deals.
Just a quick follow-up. There's been some public sparring between Elon Musk and the president's trade advisor, Peter Navarro, on some of these tariffs. Musk actually referred to Navarro today as being, quote, dumber than a sack of bricks. Are you at all, or is the administration, the president, all concerned that this is maybe impacting the public's understanding of these tariffs? It might be messing with the message on it?
No, look, these are obviously two individuals who have very different views on trade and on tariffs. Boys will be boys, and we will let their public sparring continue. And you guys should all be very grateful that we have the most transparent administration in history. And I think it also speaks to the president's willingness to hear from all sides, that he has people at the highest levels of this government in this White House who have very diverse opinions on very diverse issues, but the president takes all opinions in mind and then he makes the best decision based on the best interests of the American public. Deanna.
Thanks, Caroline. On Truth Social today, Trump was talking about one-stop shopping talks with foreign leaders, bringing leaders to the U.S., to Washington, and talking to them about tariffs, but also other topics. So is that part of his strategy to bring the leaders to Washington and trying to get deals, outside of tariffs on foreign policy issues as well?
I think the president, again, is going to have a custom, tailor-made approach to each and every country. And if that means discussions of foreign aid, of our military presence in these countries, how those troops are paid for, come to the table, that could be part of the negotiation in these economic negotiations. But it's the president's economic team who will be leading these. These are tariff and trade negotiations. And yes, they will be one-stop shopping for each and every country. They will be, as the president said again, tailor-made, not off the rack to each and every country based on America's needs.
Can you confirm?
How are you? Thank you so much, Kara from Lynn's LTV. So President Trump has designated Tren de Aragua as a foreign terrorist organization and deported its members while also moving to restrict Venezuela's oil exports. Is the administration preparing additional military or economic actions against Venezuela and the Maduro regime? And my second question is about Supreme Court Justice Amy Coney Barrett. Is the administration have a comment on her decision to go with the liberals and go actually with the Tren de Araguas? This is the same justice that actually sided against January 6th hostages last year. So is the administration have a comment? Are they disappointed in Supreme Court Justice Amy Coney Barrett?
To your first question, I don't have any actions to read out in terms of Venezuela. The president has imposed secondary tariffs on the Maduro regime and on Venezuela in the form of oil, which is obviously going to have a crippling effect on the Maduro regime, and that's the intended effect of this administration. As for the justice you mentioned, as for the Supreme Court, we've made our feelings very clear. We believe this was a massive victory. Certainly, we wish this was a 9-0 decision because we firmly believe that the president was well within his constitutional authority, and the Supreme Court made that very clear last night, and they put Judge Boasberg in his place. We called on the Supreme Court to rein in these judges who are acting as judicial activists, not real arbiters of the truth and the law, and that's exactly what we saw the Supreme Court do yesterday. Christian.
Thanks, Caroline. Now that the president's reciprocal tariffs are here, going into effect tomorrow, what's the status of the ERS? When will they actually start collecting revenue? And will that be nested under CBP or somewhere else entirely?
It's something Secretary Lutnick has taken up, so I defer you to the Department of Commerce, but it's something that he and the president believe quite strongly in, and it's a promise that they intend to keep to the American people.
Real quickly, can you explain why the president opted to send Secretary Hegseth to the dignified transfer last week instead of attending himself?
Sure. The Secretary Hegseth was there to represent the administration. The president has expressed his condolences to these families, as have I from this podium. Shelby.
Thank you. The president's trade representative this morning told senators that the president does not intend on carving out exemptions for products and companies when it comes to tariffs. But would the administration consider changing that stance should bankruptcies
begin among U.S. companies who are dependent on China trade?
I won't get ahead of the president on any exemptions or his decision on that. I will leave that to him. But again, we're looking at this country by country and based on the needs of the American people and the American workforce.
And one more, can you walk us through how this specific tariff plan was decided on and which advisor came up with it?
The reciprocal tariff plan? It was a plan that was discussed by the president's entire trade team over the course of many, many meetings, and the president ultimately decided on which way to go. A few proposals were given to the president. There was debate and discussion, and the president made his decision. And as you've seen very publicly, the entire trade team is on board with this plan and the negotiations that will ensue because of it. Sure.
Caroline, on Iran, given what's going to be happening on Saturday, what exactly is the current administration doing to stop Iran's funding of terrorist aggression worldwide that the previous administration wasn't doing?
Well, first of all, when it comes to Saturday, I won't get ahead of the president. He has said there will be direct talks with Iran on Saturday. I won't further any details from this podium for obvious reasons, security reasons. It will, provide an update as we always have. However, when it comes to Iran, the president has reimposed crippling sanctions on the Iranian regime, and he's made it very clear to Iran they have a choice to make. You can strike a deal with the president, you can negotiate, or there will be hell to pay. And as the president said yesterday, if they don't choose to move forward with diplomacy and a deal, which is the direction we do see them headed in, there will be grave consequences to pay.
The back row.
Thank you, Caroline. On the president's threat yesterday on social media to increase tariffs against China by an additional 50% in response to their retaliation, has he signed anything in terms of an executive order, any documentation around that? Will that additional 50% go into effect tomorrow?
They will be going into effect at 12:01 a.m. tonight, so effectively tomorrow, yes.
Work on that today?
Of course, as always. To the gentleman in front of you, because that's who I originally called on. Go ahead.
Over the weekend, President Trump said that he would be willing to have U.S. citizens deported to El Salvador with the cooperation of President Bukele. How would that work legally, and how many people would potentially be available for that operation?
So the president has discussed this idea quite a few times publicly. He's also discussed it privately. You're referring to the president's idea for American citizens to potentially be deported. These would be heinous, violent criminals who have broken our nation's laws repeatedly. And these are violent, repeat offenders in American streets. The president has said, if it's legal, right? If there is a legal pathway to do that, he's not sure. We are not sure if there is. It's an idea that he has simply floated and has discussed very publicly as in the effort of transparency. Reagan.
Thank you, Caroline. There's been more reporting coming out now about President Biden's decline while in the White House. Is the White House considering releasing the audio of Biden's interview with Special Counsel Robert Hur to the public, which the former president had previously blocked?
I don't have an update on that, but I can certainly check. I think the American people would be quite interested to hear that tape, but I'll double check on the release of it.
Thank you.
Michael.
Thank you, Caroline. On Saturday, during meetings with Iran, President Trump says high-level officials will be meeting directly with Iranian officials. We're hearing some pushback from Iran now saying those talks will be indirect. Can you clarify?
They will be direct talks on Saturday, and I won't get ahead of the president on any further details. Jennifer.
Yeah, two things. On the Israel tariffs, can you give us an update on the discussion on relaxing those tariffs? And then I had another question about the Doge team after that.
That discussion is ongoing. I don't have any definitive details to iron out for you here.
And then the president on Thursday told us that there was an incredible discovery that the Doge team had made. He called it horrible and incredible. Can you reveal that yet? Give us details on what it was about?
There has been a discovery. I hate to leave you hanging on a cliff, but I don't want to get ahead of the president on that. But I can confirm there has been a discovery. It's just not quite yet ready for release. Sure. Go ahead.
Caroline, thank you.
I was calling on the young lady behind you, but I'll come to you after, Ed.
All right.
Not discriminating here.
The president is meeting today with House Republicans. Can you say who is in that meeting and his message to Republicans that are skeptical of the Senate-passed budget framework?
Sure. The president will be meeting with Republican lawmakers today here at the White House to talk to them about the framework that the Senate passed. The president was very quick to put out a statement about his support for the reconciliation package that the Senate passed, and he is counting on House Republicans to pass it. The Republicans received an overwhelming mandate from the American public to govern. We have an extraordinary opportunity. There are key promises that the president made to the American people in this bill: tax cuts, securing the border, deregulation, unleashing the might of American energy. These are good things for the American people. The president wants to see this get done, and that's why he's engaging with lawmakers today.
Just a quick follow-up on tariffs. Kevin Hassett said today that the administration is prioritizing talks with Japan and South Korea, other trading partners. Are there other countries on that list that you guys can name publicly that you're having serious discussions with?
Sure. As you have heard from various administration officials, myself included, there have been nearly 70 countries that have reached out to the administration last time I checked. But again, I hear the phones are ringing off the hook. There are foreign leaders who want to fly to Washington tonight and get on a plane to negotiate with this country, which shows you the leverage that the president is using. It shows you the rest of the world needs the United States of America to do business with. Israel, obviously, yesterday you heard a public statement from Prime Minister Netanyahu. The president has detailed his calls with the leaders of Japan and South Korea. We are going to prioritize our allies and our partners around the world first when it comes to these negotiations, and the trade team will be divvying them up again to make tailor-made trade deals around the world. Ed, go ahead. As promised.
Yes, thank you. You mentioned the 70 countries or so. I'm curious, though, under what conditions at this point would President Trump talk to President Xi about tariffs?
Look, I just spoke to the president about this, and he believes that China wants to make a deal with the United States. He believes China has to make a deal with the United States. It was a mistake for China to retaliate. The president, when America is punched, he punches back harder. That's why there will be 104% tariffs going into effect on China tonight at midnight. But the president believes that Xi and China want to make a deal. They just don't know how to get that started. And the president also wanted me to tell all of you that if China reaches out to make a deal, he'll be incredibly gracious, but he's going to do what's best for the American people.
So China has to call first?
The Chinese want to make a deal. They just don't know how to do it. But the president will be implementing these 104% tariffs on China tonight.
And under what conditions might he consider lowering tariffs on China at this point?
It would be imprudent of me to tell you those conditions here from the podium. Sure, Gabe.
Thanks, Caroline. With regards to the Supreme Court ruling on the Alien Enemies Act, you're right, it was a win for the administration, but the justices also said that deportees are entitled to due process. Does the administration agree with that?
That's not quite true, Gabe. They said that they are entitled to a habeas petition, and we are going to continue to comply with the law, and we are wholly confident that every single person that has been deported under the Alien Enemies Act, every person that will continue to be deported under the Alien Enemies Act qualifies for that deportation.
NBC News is reporting that the administration is considering drone strikes on drug cartels in Mexico. We're citing several officials. This morning, Mexico's president was asked about that, and she said that we reject any of those actions. Your response?
I saw that reporting. I don't want to confirm it from this podium. I don't want to comment on it because I'm not sure, but I would defer you to the National Security Council.
So you haven't confirmed the report, but with Mexico's president saying that she rejects any of that, what would your response be? How is the relationship then between Mexico's president and the White House right now over targeting drug cartels?
Well, first of all, the relationship between President Sheinbaum and President Trump is quite good, and I think both world leaders would tell you that. The president has been engaged directly with President Sheinbaum on a number of different topics, particularly when it comes to clamping down on the Mexican drug cartels, on clamping down on illegal immigration, human trafficking, drug trafficking through our southern border. She's taken significant steps towards doing that, but as for that specific report, again, I'm not going to comment.
Caroline, sure. Two questions on trade. First, as a part of these negotiations, is it possible for countries to lower their tariffs below that 10% bare minimum that's been set?
Again, I'll leave that to the president to make those determinations, but I can tell you that 10% universal baseline will go into effect as these negotiations are ongoing.
Got it. And then what is your thinking just as far as low labor cost countries? Like if you've got a country like Vietnam that wants to negotiate, but obviously they have some advantages in terms of trade, in terms of the people there are not paid as much as American citizens. What is kind of the thinking? Can they still achieve a good kind of trade outcome with the United States?
Well, again, again, you're right to point out that different countries have different labor markets. They have different skills, if you will, different resources, and the president is going to take all of that into account. His team will take all of that into account when they're negotiating these deals. I do just want to point out one thing, that the president, everybody in Washington, whether they want to admit it or not, knows that this president is right when it comes to tariffs and when it comes to trade. In fact, Democrats have long said that the United States of America has been ripped off by the countries around the world. They just don't want to admit it now because it's President Trump who is saying that. In June of 1996, Nancy Pelosi spoke on the House floor. She urged her colleagues at the time to fight against the status quo trade policies that had contributed to America's trade deficit with China. In fact, Nancy Pelosi said, "How far does China have to go? How much more repression? How big a trade deficit? How many jobs have to be lost for the American workers? How much dangerous proliferation has to exist before members of this House of Representatives will say, 'I will not endorse the status quo'?" Those are the words of Nancy Pelosi in 1996. Well, President Trump is finally answering her call 27 years later. Nancy Pelosi can thank President Trump today for the 104% retaliatory tariff that will be going into effect on China. In 2007, Chuck Schumer spoke of our nation's crippling trade deficit, saying these are the kinds of records the American people don't want us to be breaking. The administration needs to move beyond words, take action now to reverse a trend that threatens our prospects for future economic growth. And Chuck Schumer said that in 2007. Finally, in 2025, President Trump is taking action. Recently defeated Democrat Sherrod Brown said on deficits in 2012 that our deficit then at China had reached an all-time high, and it was on pace to recede last year's record. The trade deficit had cost American workers millions of jobs at the time. These are the words of Democrats years ago. It is about time America finally has a president who is taking action to restore those millions of jobs back to the United States of America, to boost our manufacturing industry. He's doing what's right for the American people. It will take a lot of labor. It will take a lot of effort. That's exactly what the American people elected this president to do. He will be talking about our energy agenda at 3 o'clock today over in the East Room, as you all know. He will be signing a bill to unleash the might of our beautiful, clean coal industry in this country, which is a reliable energy source also for AI. There's a great story in Bloomberg today, actually, about the executive order that will be signed later. So we'll see you all there. I'll let the president speak more. We'll see you later. Thanks, guys.
Some outstanding updates from Caroline Leavitt, the White House press secretary, doing an amazing job just the other day. And since that time, we have now seen a halt on tariffs with many, many, many countries. In fact, all countries really outside of the Chinese communist threat, which we are seeing that tariff battle underway in real time. And President Trump knows how to get it done, because we saw the stock market skyrocket yesterday. And Mr. Director, one more time, that sponsor for me. And in due time as well, because next week is, of course, tax day. So Tax Network USA Incorporated, great to talk to them in case you're seeing any issues before you get ready to file or pay next week. We hope you're getting a refund, but who knows with this bloated government. TNUSA.com/RSBN. Settle those back taxes today. Protect yourself from the IRS and call 800-357-1415. That is Tax Network USA Incorporated. Protect yourself from the IRS. Settle those back taxes now. Visit TNUSA.com/RSBN. Give them a call at 800-357-1415. Thank you to Tax Network USA for sponsoring us here at Right Side Broadcasting Network. And Kalshi, of course, a wonderful place where you can trade on the most important events, politics, culture, or sports. Questions like, will a recession hit the United States this year? Right now, it's teetering on a 51% chance, according to the site. Scan the QR code now. Trade live. Make those bets on big questions facing the United States and the world when it comes to politics, culture, sports, and really everything in between, including what will egg prices do. So very simple to place those bets live now at Kalshi, KALSHI.com/RSBN. That's KALSHI.com/RSBN. Thank you for sponsoring us, Kalshi, here at Right Side Broadcasting Network Live. And perhaps you caught President Trump yesterday on the South Portico. He loves race cars. He loves sports. He loves everything about competition. And he has said that the thing that really makes him excited is being a deal maker. If you've read The Art of the Deal or The Art of the Comeback, we are seeing this in real time with all of the updated news on the tariffs. He had a quick press conference while meeting with those racing champions outside, seeing NASCAR vehicles, also Formula Ones that were on standby. I'm sure many of those race car drivers thinking, would we ever be standing here with the President of the United States in a real-time press conference outside with the in-town press pool in Washington, D.C. We could toss it there from yesterday, a sunny moment on the South Portico of the White House. And just a minor audio technical difficulty on that, but we'll have that back for you momentarily. Of course, here at Right Side Broadcasting Network Live, we are covering the latest news from the Trump White House at 11:40 on the East Coast. Of course, that's 8:40 on the West Coast. Welcome. Good morning to all of you. I'm Robert McNeely. Always a joy to be with you here at Right Side Broadcasting Network Live. If you've been following us for the last decade, we were your go-to source for all of the Trump rallies. And thank you to our founder, Joe Seals, who had that vision when President Trump came down that golden escalator and started meeting with different Republican organizations and really getting out on the campaign trail early on, from the Empire State to State 48, all the way out in Arizona, where he did some of his first rallies. And then Joe realized, oh my goodness, this is becoming a movement. Let's cover it in real time, because back then the mainstream media was laughing off President Trump as if he would not be successful. Can you remember those reels that are still on YouTube and other social media sources with people like George Clooney laughing, saying there'll never be a President Trump, and even Barack Hussein Obama going on shows like Jimmy Kimmel and doing his infamous mic drop saying that at least I'll be a president, criticizing President Trump, criticism of him back when he was president. Of course, Barack Hussein Obama, perhaps one of the worst presidents in American history, but far overshadowed by his vice president, the autopen presidency of Joe Biden. The second worst president, according to Bill O'Reilly's list, the worst president, in my opinion, surpassing Jimmy Carter, at least in the modern presidency, on my list. So we know that good days are here, a golden era once again with President Trump truly in charge. And even if you disagree with President Trump, at least you know who is in charge in the White House. Yesterday, signing a great executive orders, fighting for our environment as a true conservationist. When you look at President Trump, that's the whole nature of what he's trying to do. He wants clean air, clean water. He is moved by the MAHA agenda, something that Secretary Kennedy brought to his table and asked him, sir, how can we build upon this? And of course, RFK Jr. having run for president as a Democrat, trying to unseat autopen. Of course, another rigged election by the DNC, 3 straight that we know of, taking a sitting president who received at least 12 million votes in the primary, rejecting all other challenges, and then anointing his vice president, Kamala Harris, to then take the nomination, thinking that she'd be able to connect with people. Well, they were mistaken, and the American people, you so chose to send President Trump back to 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue in a peaceful and patriotic manner that is truly the greatest political comeback in American history. Nothing comes close to it, and only the second person to have achieved this after Grover Cleveland, respectively, as the 22nd and 24th president of the United States. So very hard to serve not only 2 terms as president, but 2 non-consecutive terms. President Trump committed to making this great nation stronger than ever before. And I think it's become very clear in the last few hours with the hold and the memorandums stopping the tariffs from continuing with these other nations, solely focused on stopping the Chinese Communist Party influence. Because we've seen that they've been playing war games along the coast of Taiwan. Taiwan's crucial for our trade as well as for theirs, because they're the chips that can actually put into these beautiful phones, these computers we have here, that help all of Western civilization. So we should be allowed to have free and fair trade. That's the key to all this. Because things like NAFTA, they were unfair. They shut down our factories. They ignored our industrial revolution. They put America last. Whether it was Bill Clinton or George W. Bush or Barack Hussein Obama, and of course Autopen Joe, who really put this country in a spiral, $36 trillion in debt. President Trump, the antithesis of them, someone who knows a thing or two about money, having attended the Wharton School of Finance, and truly wants to give back to his nation. At the end of the day, he is a dad, he is a grandfather who cares so deeply about this country. He takes $1 per quarter in salary, gives the rest away because he loves this nation. Well, we'll throw that back now to that video. Yesterday, President Trump meeting with racing superstars throughout the ages and then also addressing questions from the press.
A very special day for a lot of reasons, actually, if you really think about it. But this is a day because Roger Penske's a great friend of mine. I've known him a long time. He received a few years ago the Presidential Medal of Freedom, the highest award in the country outside of the Congressional Medal of Honor. It's sort of the civilian version of the Congressional Medal of Honor. And I watched him win his 18th Indianapolis 500. And now I just said, did you win 19? He said, well, actually, we won 20. He won 2 more since then. So that was like 5 years ago, and he won 2 more since then. And just well-deserving. If you look, Germany, Japan, the countries, they spend billions of dollars trying to win Indy. And I guess they do it sometimes, but not much. But he's done it 20 times. So he must know something about cars and racing, and trucks, too, by the way. He knows a lot about trucks. But he's been a very special guy, and he's brought some of our outstanding racing champions with tremendous courage and guts and grit. Hello, fellas. I didn't see you guys over there. That's a good-looking couple of teams, too. They have a lot of courage. And we'll see you in a second. So we're joined by the 2023-2024 NASCAR champion, Ryan Blaney, and Joey Logano. That's really fantastic, fellas. That's great. How fast do you get that car going, like, as an example, on average? How fast will you
About
go?
190.
About 190, you can have it. I don't want to go, but 190, that's fantastic. And on a straightaway, you'll go how much?
About 190, 200.
About 190 to 200. Well, it takes a special genetic, you know that, right? It's genes. Not only it's genes, really. Most people couldn't do that. Very few people could do it. The 2023 and 2024 Indianapolis 500 winner, Joseph Newgarden. Hey, Joseph. And the 2025 champions of the 24 Hours of Daytona, Felipe Nasser, Nick Tandy, and Lawrence Ventura. Thank you, guys. This is just a celebration of racing, and it's a celebration of Roger and his great success and his life, and these incredible champions who really do what very few people could do. Mentally, psychologically, it's a big factor here, like it is in all sports, really, but you need a great physical ability. People that do this, they don't realize what great athletes they are. It's just not the car. I had a friend, he's a very successful guy, but he was a driver, and started off, he wanted to be a race car driver. He wanted to be like you. He wanted to be just like Joey Logano. And he had it for business, but he didn't have it for he said, I just couldn't compete with the good drivers. He couldn't do it, no matter what he did. And he got lucky. He went into business and made a lot of money. He was very successful. But he said, I couldn't press the accelerator down all the way, and the best drivers could. So there was just a difference. It was really, I never forgot that story. But these are great champions, and it's a great sport. And what you've done in Indianapolis also with the track and everything has been incredible. I mean, it's really incredible. People tell me it's been amazing. I'll have to get there. I'm going to have to get there maybe this year with you. But well, thank you very much. Thank you. We did Daytona. We went around the track in the Beast, what's called the Beast, with the thick windows and the whole thing. And you're not supposed to hear anything, but I heard the fans. They were going crazy outside. So it was a great honor. So I just wanted to welcome them to the White House, a special place, very, very special place. And we love champions, and these are the greatest champions in the world. These are the greatest champions in racing, and it's an honor to have you all. And thank you very much, all of you. Thank you very much. I wouldn't ride in that thing if you paid me. How fast will that go?
240 plus.
240.
Yeah.
That's unbelievable.
Weapon.
Two-time winner of the Indianapolis 500, consecutively, right?
Yes, sir.
So what the hell are you doing? What do you eat?
A lot of milk. Drinking a lot of milk, hopefully.
Okay, I'm going to take some. And that one is pure speed and endurance, right?
Correct, sir.
Speed and endurance. Is that car a very different car than, let's say, this one? Very different?
Very different.
Very different.
Yeah.
Made for...
You gotta last so many hours.
Right.
And we all share the car, so three drivers.
Totally different engine.
Different engine.
Everything's different.
Everything.
And you'll go, is it 24 hours?
Yeah.
That's a long time. And that car just, there's no let up, it's just constant, right? That's fantastic. Congratulations. That's endurance. Endurance is a big factor in life and success, I can tell you. So you guys have it. Well, thank you very much.
Well, a great time outside the White House on the South Portico. President Trump really knows how to engage not only sports superstars like those racing champions, but also get to those core questions that the press may have pertaining to how these tariffs will affect the American people. And we're seeing now the result of the art of the deal, with the stock market skyrocketing yesterday and really a targeted focus on reshaping this economy to strengthen the American dollar again and then weaken the Chinese Communist Party. As Scott Besson put it, our brave Treasury Secretary, this China cannot survive without us, nor can many other countries, if you were watching the playback we had with Caroline Leavitt from the other day. So many countries nearing 90, 70 plus coming to the table asking President Trump to consider those new trade deals. Also, Bibi Netanyahu, the great prime minister of the state of Israel, coming to the White House just the other day to highlight not only the continued fight against the radical Islamic terrorists. We need to get around 30 or so hostages back. Whether or not they have passed, it's just been a horrible situation. Thinking about that, losing a loved one in this process, whether they be American, a foreign national, or anyone of Jewish descent, especially for the Israeli citizens who were so brutally attacked back on October 7th of 2023. President Trump working hard to get the remaining hostages back and to deplete Hamas, Hezbollah, and the Houthi rebels with strategic strikes not only in Lebanon, but in Sudan and wherever they may be harbored in the world, including Syria. He did it once before. He's doing it again, dismantling ISIS and the radical Islamic Caliphate. It must come to an end. And even Muslim Democrats in Michigan supporting President Trump in those efforts, going back to the campaign, because as they put it, he's the one that can help safely secure this country and also our interest abroad, even if we have differences with people religiously or even on the other side of the aisle. We'd like to thank our sponsors here at Right Side Broadcasting Network Live. Of course, freetrumpbook.com, the kids' guide to President Trump and the kids' guide to the courage of President Trump. All wonderful booklets for your young patriots at home. And whether it's Easter coming up in a week to celebrate the resurrection of our Lord and Savior, or if it's Christmas time celebrating his birth, or really any celebration in between, these booklets are good year-round for those young patriots in your lives, or even that neighbor who just has their head in the sand. Of course, Ambassador Mike Huckabee. Congratulations to him for finally being confirmed as the next ambassador to Israel. Brings you all of these great guides at freetrumpbook.com. We know that his daughter, Sarah Huckabee Sanders, the governor of Arkansas, doing an extraordinary job. Also, our thoughts and prayers with those in Arkansas facing many heavy storms in the last several days and all the fallout from that. So we are thinking about Arkansas, and we are thinking about the policies that have made this country great. Thank you to Ambassador Mike Huckabee for freetrumpbook.com. The Colonial Metals, of course, sponsors here at the right side of history. You need gold and silver. It's very simple for your retirement, or if you want to send a student of yours perhaps to a great university like Auburn, which you can see behind me. That's an aerial view of the great Auburn University campus. freegoldguide.com/RSBN. Scan the QR code now to shield your savings and heed the warnings of billionaires like Warren Buffett, who have put all their money into the stock market, into gold and silver, and really are calling for this right now, regardless of who's in charge, regardless of the kind of government you live under. Gold and silver stand the test of time and should be in your pocket. freegoldguide.com/RSBN. Thank you to Paul Stone, the CEO of Colonial Metals Group, and his extraordinary team for being the best in the business and giving us insight on why gold and silver will be your best bet and hedge against inflation. And as we get close to the top of the hour, we're in for a real treat today. We'll be joined by former Congressman Rod Blum of Iowa to give us some insight on a number of different items, from reconciliation bills to the fact that these district attorneys are just really creating more and more lawfare against President Trump. But as we saw, the Supreme Court ruling in favor of the Alien Enemies Act, President Trump removing more illegal aliens from the United States. And we are joined live now by Mr. Rod Blum, the congressman from the 1st District of Iowa, served 2 terms in that beautiful state. Sir, thank you for joining us today. What are some of your thoughts with the lawfare that continues to take place against President Trump and the fact that some federal judges are trying to usurp the power of the executive authorities?
Hello, Robert. Thanks for having me on. Good to see you. If we go back to November, President Trump and J.D. Vance, they won the popular vote. First time I think a Republican's done that in 20 years. They won every single swing state. They won the Senate and kept the House, and they had a rather large electoral college victory. So all that being said, I would say the American voters gave President Trump and his agenda overwhelming "we want it," an overwhelming yes vote. And yet now they find that we're stymied. Not the president, the American people. What we voted for, the agenda that we want, is now stymied. And the Democrats, the left, have tried using the legal system, if we go back a couple years, to put President Trump in jail. And that didn't work. And now they're using the legal system to stymie his agenda. I really should be saying our agenda, the American people's agenda. And it's not right. They're overstepping their boundaries, and it needs to be corrected, either through the Supreme Court actions or through, I know Senator Grassley of Iowa has a bill now to try to rein in these rogue district court judges. There's, I think, Robert, 670, maybe 700 of these district court judges across the United States, all appointed by the president. So simple math would say half of them are appointed by Clinton, Obama, or Biden. And then of that group, there's probably a certain percentage that are liberal activists. And that's where they overstep their bounds. And they should be limited, their decisions should be limited to the parties involved, just the parties involved, and those parties involved must be in their district. I mean, that's just common sense. And the people I know, everyday average Americans that I talk to every day, they're scratching their heads saying, this is not right. How can a district court judge in Iowa, for example, make a ruling to stop the President of the United States agenda across the entire United States? It just doesn't seem right. And in fact, it's not right. And the classic example of this, Robert, is this Judge Boasberg that has made these rulings on the on exporting these guys to the El Salvador prison. He's an activist judge, and he always. Let's back up a second. Democrats judge shop. They go around the country and they find out who are these activist judges that we can depend on, and this is one of them. In fact, this guy was assigned magically, Robert, the Ray Epps case. You know, Ray Epps was one of the rebel rousers in the January 6th protest, telling people, go into the Capitol. We got to breach the fence. Go into the Capitol. And he got Judge Boasberg. Isn't that, what a coincidence, huh?
That's what I'm
because
always...
they judge shop. Go ahead.
All right, that's a really good point with the judge shopping, because we have hundreds of judges, if not perhaps thousands, potentially within the United States. How does it go to the same person that clearly has a bias and has shown that bias on a regular basis? Even Senator Ted Cruz mentioning over the course of his tenure in Washington, these Democrats seem to bat 100 when it comes to these activist judges on the courts, going as far as the United States Supreme Court. But with us Republicans, sometimes we're batting 50-50 because we have true conservative jurisprudence, and that's not necessarily in political opinion, but focused on the letter of the law. So how can we fix what seems to be a teeter-tottered justice system that should have blind justice when it looks at each and every case?
I'll address that in a second. Back to Boasberg, I went and checked the docket, Robert, for March for what they call emergency orders, things that come before the court outside of regular court hours. And for the entire month of March, he was not on the emergency docket anywhere. There's 4 different judges. But magically, he gets assigned to this case with President Trump. So, yeah, we all know, just like, Biden was disintegrating mentally before our eyes. We know what we see. And they try to gaslight us and say, no, this isn't an issue. This is just chance that it happened. It's not chance. And we all know it. And something needs to be done about it, there's no doubt. And the quickest thing is probably the Supreme Court. They just need to overturn these. Now, here's the thing. Trump is in a second term. I assume it's his last term. That's another discussion. So everyone knows he's a lame duck president. And so, and the Democrat strategy is they're just looking to the midterm elections to try to get the House, probably the House, in Democrat hands, and then they can stop his agenda. So what's their strategy between now and those elections in 2026? Delay, 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 delay. That's their strategy. They're going to do it through the court system. So the quickest way, Supreme Court, overrule it. And then the other thing we need to do is, for example, pass Senator Grassley's bill, and which says basically 2 things, that their rulings have to be based on the parties involved in the lawsuit. They can't make a ruling that enjoins someone else that's not in the lawsuit. That just makes sense. And secondly, those lawsuits with the parties involved have to be in their district. Common sense, I think. And you know what? Republicans on occasion have done the same thing as well. So it goes both ways. Democrats, I think, are far worse at it. Goes both ways. And we need some laws passed so these district court judges are making rulings in their district, because it's out of control. It was not the intent of a district court judge to be able to enjoin the president of the United States and the people's duly elected agenda.
To compare it to the great game of football, it's almost as if targeting happening in these situations. Now, Alan Dershowitz, of course, a great constitutional lawyer, defended President Trump during those fake impeachments, doing a great job with including the current Attorney General Pam Bondi on that extraordinary legal team when he went through that first impeachment hoax. But he has mentioned on several occasions that America is one of the only Western civilized nations directly electing district attorneys and state's attorneys. He argues, and someone who is a true liberal Democrat, perhaps now, I think he mentioned that he left the Democrat Party because of how communist they've become and how anti-Semitic they've become. But he said that maybe we should focus on appointments of these DAs and state's attorneys instead of direct election. Do you think that may help when it comes to getting rid of the lawfare that's taking place?
Well, the first thing that comes to my mind, Robert, about that is if we elect them, then, the Democrat California, New York, Democrat states, blue states are going to have entire court systems of liberal judges. And the red states will have entire court systems of conservative judges. So that's the first thing that comes to my mind there. But we basically have that today. Anybody that's appointed by Clinton, Obama, or Biden most likely is liberal. And the same thing if it's appointed by Bush, or by Donald Trump, most likely conservative. So you said it when in your opening line to this segment, and that was, there's a blindfold on Lady Justice that's over every courthouse, and justice is supposed to be blind, and it's become so partisan with politics. And the American people, your average voter, knows something is wrong. This is wrong to do this. And to the Democrat Party, I would say, what are your policies to make America better? What are your policies? I mean, we hate Donald Trump is not a policy. We're going to do everything. We're going to fight in the streets. That's not a policy. What are your policies to make this country better? That's a pretty simple thing. They still haven't figured out why they lost. It's like, can you find one item, just one, in the Trump agenda that you might agree with? Just one. Let's do that one. Let's get started with that one. I mean, can you agree our borders should be secure? Can you agree that people that came here illegally that commit heinous crimes should get the hell out of the country? Can you agree to that? I mean, let's just start there, and the American people would say thank you. But it's like this game of politics has become so important that the American people are forgotten. The voters are forgotten, and what we want is forgotten. All we need to do is stop the other side. Other side bad, our side good. It's ridiculous. It's sophomoric. When I first went to Washington, Robert, I used to say when I was running for office, I said, this is sophomoric. These politicians and what they do. And when I got there, it's like sophomoric would have been a compliment. It was like grade school stuff. It's like, come on. Let's just forget the R and the D for a second. Let's work for the betterment of the American people and what they put us here for. And I think that was to keep women out of men's sports. It was to secure the border. It was to put criminals behind bars and get tougher on criminals. And it was to get people that are here illegally back out of here and secure our border. Now, what's so radical about that?
Common sense reforms.
That's why Trump won overwhelmingly. That's why he won. And it's like these folks are trying to stop the thing. I take it personally. To me, it's not against Trump. It's against the American people. It's against the 70-some million people that voted for President Trump. They don't care what we think. They're trying to stop the agenda we voted for. That is just wrong.
Oh, it's so true. And you see even the warnings from our founders nearly 250 years ago that these entanglements and parties could end up leading to, as you put it, great Congressman, sophomoric actions at best, because it ends up focused on groups or even the individuals and their agendas versus the benefit of society. I'd like some of your thoughts, too, on some recent legislation. It looks like this reconciliation package is coming together, at least in the House. President Trump mentioning to the NRCC dinner just the other day, he likes this bill. He wants the other congressmen and some Republicans who might be faltering on it to get behind it and to get behind really the legislative agenda of House Speaker Mike Johnson. What are some of your thoughts regarding Congress and this narrow majority that the Republicans have existing right now?
Yeah, great question, Robert. Just for your viewers to explain reconciliation, it's the one time of the year when a bill can be passed that does not require a supermajority in the United States Senate, because there's a filibuster rule in the United States Senate, and everything seems to be filibustered these days, which you have to have 60 votes in the Senate to overcome a filibuster to stop it. So if you have 58 votes, which would sound like a pretty damn good majority, the minority is going to get their way. And so there's one time a year, and that's the reconciliation bill, that it just passes with a simple majority in the Senate, and of course a simple majority in the House. And it has the one thing is it has to, whatever's in it has to deal with the budget. And so it's budget reconciliation. So there's games played all the time, both sides, about what affects the budget. But let's face it, most everything Congress does affects the budget, because we have to spend money to get whatever it is that's in the bill typically. So that's nice that we can pass something on a simple majority at least once a year. So yeah, try to cram as much as we can of the president's agenda into that bill, because it just requires 51 votes in the Senate, and we have those. So it's a matter of keeping our slim majority in the House all on the same team, and keeping our slim majority in the Senate all on the same team. And that sounds very easy to do, doesn't it?
Right.
The reality, if you ask Paul Ryan or you ask John Boehner, who I served under, or you ask Mike Johnson, who I know well, not so easy. It is not easy because it's so. What happens is you have one congressman, you might have a 1-vote margin. That one congressman figures, oh, now here's my opportunity to do a little power play here on leadership. Here's my opportunity to bring home some bacon to my district. So they approach leadership and they say, I'm a no vote. They say, what's it going to take to get you to a yes? Well, we're going to have to spend a whole bunch of money in my district. Or that project we always wanted in my district, I think we need to do that. That needs to be in the bill. So these are the, I don't know if I want to call them games, but the gamesmanship that's played. And so it's not exactly simple, especially on the Republican side. It seems like we have trouble keeping the team together. The Democrats seem to stick together far more often than the Republicans do. So it's fun to watch this. My father worked at a meatpacking plant, and he always said to me, he said, Rod, if you saw what went into a hot dog, you would never eat one. So I always compared that to Congress in the making of a bill. And if you saw what went into it, you'd never want to vote for any bill, probably. It's not pretty. But at the end of the day, hopefully they get a good reconciliation bill passed with most of the president's agenda. But I will say it's tough to give tax cuts. And I'm all for tax cuts. But it's tough to give tax cuts and reduce the deficit at the same time. Now, I know tax cuts, the economists say, and it's mostly true, that they'll pay for themselves with increased economic activity. But that takes a year or two to hit or to reach that. So the office that scores these bills, the budget office that scores the bills, they typically don't take into effect economic activity. So you can say, we're going to give a tax cut. And they're saying, like, oh, that's going to increase the deficit. Nah, not really. If you look at the numbers, I was in Congress when we voted for the 2017 tax bill under President Trump, that I think may have been the largest tax cuts in United States history. And the predictions were this is going to explode the deficit. And then they come back later and say, look, it did explode the deficit. Mm-hmm. It's like, well, not really. It wasn't the tax cuts because the revenue increased. We have record revenues, Robert, probably almost every year. Problem is, whatever the revenues are, we spend trillions of dollars more. We're spendaholics. I'd always say, exactly. We spend like drunken sailors. And then my business partner, who was a sailor, said I was a drunken sailor, Rod. And at least we stopped spending when we ran out of our own money.
Right. No, it's true. And it's really, is that where it lies? It's not so much of creating a strong American dollar once again and a robust American economy, but in turn, you have to stop spending, because we saw that the stock market skyrocketed yesterday with President Trump's negotiations regarding the tariffs, and now really going in and targeting the Chinese Communist Party and China as a whole. But is it really that spending that Congress is truly addicted to and that they need to scale back on?
Yeah, exactly. If you look at the revenues, and I was on the budget committee, if you look at the revenues and the expenditures over time, our revenues most every year are all-time record high revenues. So the revenues is not the problem. It's just that we're spendaholics. And I first learned when I got into Congress, they would always tell me, especially the conservatives who wanted to kind of temper down the spending, they'd always say, you're going to find out real quickly, Rod, that there's 1,000 reasons to vote yes on a spending bill. 1,000 reasons. There are no good reasons, maybe one, to vote no. Because your constituents aren't going to like a no vote. They like, in your district, they like money coming in to work on the pet projects in that district. And in the groups that give you money, well, they have their projects too, of course, and they want funding for those. And a lot of these projects are great things. They're good things, but my God, we can't do them all at once. So lots of reasons to vote yes on spending. Hey, everybody's happy, right? Who's not happy when you vote yes on a big spending bill? Everybody in your district's happy, business is happy, stock market's happy. They love spending, and everybody's happy, and other than the people that care about our deficit. And so it's just interesting how the system works anymore. I was very surprised and shocked at the way the system works there, the way they make the hot dogs, as my father would say.
You know what always gives me a kick and really sometimes grinds my gears? Any local chamber of commerce, because when that spending comes in, say that pork barrel or the earmarks, they could be all smiles for specific projects, regardless of Republican or Democrat. But if there is a congressman who stands up, as you did so bravely as a business person, as someone trying to represent their constituents not only well, but truly with that neighborly attitude of, hey, we have a spending problem that will in turn cause national security issues. We might have to hold off on this. You usually see that person who's running the Chamber of Commerce the next week. They were smiling at you maybe at the luncheon, but at the next dinner, it's, oh, I don't like this guy. And then all of a sudden these mailers start coming in. Hey, this guy is the worst thing since Adolf Hitler. That's an extreme version of it. But we see that in district to district. And that's why it's sometimes confusing, because the American people as a whole have a very bad review of Congress, but they tend to really like their congressman, and they only get one, per the district they live in.
Yeah, well said, well said. And what the old saying is, one man's pork is another man's gold. And that is so true as it applies to Congress. And everybody's like, if you say to them in general, hey, do you think we should cut spending to help cut this deficit? Absolutely, 100% we should. Now, should we cut a little bit out of your project? No way. My project is that important. Don't touch my project. That's literally the way it goes. I remember when I was there, Senator Rand Paul had what he called the penny plan. And at that point in time, I think we might have had a $400 billion deficit. Wouldn't that be nice?
Right.
Today,
compared to 36 trillion.
$400 billion. And his plan was, let's cut 1%, 1 penny, 1% of the budget every year until it's balanced. And I had the budget committee run the numbers. I think it would have taken 3.5 years is all. 3.5 years. We'd had a balanced budget. Cutting 1%, and I would ask crowds that I would speak to, what percent of the federal budget do you think is waste, fraud, and abuse? The lowest number, Robert, the lowest number I ever heard was 20%. That's the lowest number.
Wow.
I heard up to 50% is what the average person thought. So 20 to 50%, they're probably right. So can we cut 1%? In 3.5 years, that would have did the trick back then. So maybe today it's 2%, 3%. Let's cut that. And then if we say, we don't want to cut Social Security, we do not want to, cut that benefit to our senior citizens. All right, then let's cut something else 5%. It seems to me like it's a doable thing. 2% of the federal number, 3% of the federal budget. Seems like we should be able to do that. And then if we stick to it, 3 to 5 years, we can have a balanced budget. Without cutting, aid to our elderly senior citizens. But we just couldn't get that across the finish line. That seemed too radical for a lot of people in Congress.
And hopefully this brings, with the findings of Doge and the great work Elon Musk is doing, maybe some inspiration to finally getting that done. What are your thoughts, two-part question, just on the tariffs as a whole and how President Trump is proceeding with this trade battle, specifically with China? And also, what are your thoughts on speaking so much on Congress, the state of it, the fact that, as you said, they have a spending problem? Do you think that, given states have really found a way in many cases to have balanced budget amendments, should that be introduced in the Congress? And also, many states have some form of term limits. Should we also have that introduced on the House and the Senate to perhaps maybe have a little bit more turnover in both chambers?
Oh yeah, now you're really singing to my heart. Yes, the balanced budget amendment I think is definitely needed. Come on, we don't need more evidence than $37 trillion in debt. Need the balanced budget amendment, absolutely. And I'm a term limits guy, and the founding fathers they thought they would have trouble getting somebody to serve. To put down, get off their horse and quit plowing their land and go to Washington, D.C. and serve for 2 years. They didn't think they'd get anybody to do it. And it was never meant to be a career. And now it's become a career. So yes, I think term limits is a good thing, and turnover is a good thing. And both sides. Now here you go. It goes back to your point about I love my congressman, but I think Congress is horrible. It goes back to let's say I'm talking to a Republican, they'll say, yes, that'd be great, get those Democrats having to run for office and have a good chance of beating them. But But my guy, a Republican, we want to keep him in there for as long as possible. So it's like the logic is not real sound, I'd say. So yes, those two things I think would really help our country in a big way.
That's
and I
fantastic.
forgot your first. You asked like
Oh,
three
yes,
questions.
and just your overall thought on, since we're talking economics as well, just the long game with President Trump and the use of tariffs. You saw in the first term, especially when you were in Congress, just the benefits of those tax cuts and the work he used in leveraging other nations to bring back free and fair trade, truly fair trade, to the United States. What are your thoughts on how this might end up, being that it's truly the art of the deal and the art of the comeback in real time? Those two books, President Trump having that base tariff on many, many nations, now over 70 coming to the table, but now he's putting all of that on pause to focus on China, and really I think to remove their manufacturing and to bring that prowess back to the United States. So just your overall thoughts on how these tariffs will end up benefiting or even maybe perhaps not benefiting the United States.
Well, we can't be panic hands, can we? I think the president invented a new word this week. We can't panic. We can't be panic hands. But I agree with the president. He's a businessman, and I'm a businessman as well. And we just get taken advantage of horribly by the rest of the world. And these people, these folks that panic, and of course we know the mainstream media is doing it on purpose because they don't want it to work and they want to make Trump look bad. And I think that's pathetic that they do that. So all the news is negative. But Trump knows what he's doing. He's a business guy. And he knows that we've been taken advantage of. We've been the world's piggy bank. And people like how many Cadillacs do we sell into Europe? Probably none, zero. But how many BMWs and Mercedes Benzes from Germany, for example, do they ship over here? And it's like, wait a minute, the president isn't for anything radical. He's just for fair trade. I think the president is for no tariffs, zero tariffs, as long as we have a zero tariff when we're trying to sell something to the other country. And competition makes everybody better, whether it's in the school system, which we could talk about for hours, or it's in the world economy. Competition. Some countries are going to be better at doing things that other countries aren't, and vice versa. And it's like we need to have this fair and free trade. So I'm not a fan of tariffs, but neither is the president. But we've got to do something, because what we're doing has not accomplished anything other than we're getting our trade deficit is, I think, $600-700 billion a year. And every time we ship a dollar out of this country, we become a little bit poorer. Our country does. And we want to increase our wealth, not decrease it. So $700 billion a year, think of it this way. We just put on a boat and ship it to countries around the world. Let's keep it here. So should be no trades, no tariffs, and let the best company win, the best product win. And God, we've been taking advantage for so long. And people should not panic. Let him work this system. And rest assured, China is not our ally. Okay, so if he gets he'll get all the rest of these tariffs taken care of. And then if China wants to keep raising tariffs on us, let's just keep raising it on them. And it's like, guess what? Here's the thing, Robert, people need to realize is we have the biggest economy in the world. We consume more than any country on this planet. Does that not give us an edge in these negotiations? Of course it does. We're the biggest consumer in the world. It gives us a huge edge. And let's use that. Let's use that edge. Let's use that power. That's what Trump's saying as a business guy. We're in the driver's seat. Just don't be panicking. Hang on, relax, take a deep breath, and it will work out well. He does know what he's doing when it comes to business. And how this has gone on for the last 40 years is beyond me. It's just this trade deficit makes our country poorer, Robert, at the end of the day. We're talking $700 billion poorer in 12 months. So it's time it stops. So I support what he's doing 100%. Now, as far as the tactics, who knows? They know what they're doing. And once again, China is not our friend. We got to remember that. They're not our friend.
And of course, doing very evil things like sending the Uyghur Muslims to concentration camps. Our spy satellites have seen those things. Our intelligence communities have gathered that intelligence. So that's another conversation for another day, but this is not necessarily a good group of individuals, as former President Biden once put it when he was a senator, welcoming the Chinese into the World Trade Organization. A wonderful culture historically, but the communism that has come to that once great nation has really befalled them and hurt people on the world stage, not only COVID. So some great thoughts, some great expertise from Mr. Rod Blum, and some excellent points, especially because Speaker Pelosi, former President Obama, and also that goofy guy, that crazy Bernie Sanders from Vermont, also once held these opinions on tariffs, as you just outlined, sir. But Mr. Rod Blum from Iowa, the former congressman in the 1st District, please come back soon to see us here at Right Side Broadcasting Network Live.
Will do. Thanks for having me on, Robert.
Always great to have an exclusive interview, in-depth analysis with the people who have been in the room, like Rod Blum from Iowa, an excellent businessman, a former congressman, someone who believes deeply in the foundings of this country, that, as he put it, you go there to Congress to serve a short period of time, and then you go back and let your neighbor do it. And again, whether it was Nancy Pelosi, Barack Obama, Bernie Sanders, they all believed in these tariffs. And then all of a sudden, because of lobbyists, because of globalism, perhaps because they have Trump derangement syndrome, they're somehow now against the policies that they allegedly stood for years and years. Well, we know the man who knows money, the man who knows business deals, the art of the deal, in fact, right there at the White House, 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue. We're live here for you at Right Side Broadcasting Network, covering the latest from the Trump administration inside and outside of the Beltway. Stick with us. We're going to a quick commercial break. We'll see you in a couple of minutes.
Welcome to Right Side Broadcasting Network, your trusted conservative news outlet. At RSBN, we deliver the truth when the mainstream media falls short. Since 2015, we've proudly broadcasted every single one of President Trump's iconic MAGA rallies, bringing you the excitement and energy live before anyone else. By watching RSBN, you get an unfiltered front row view of the action on the ground. We interview the crowds to give a voice to millions of Americans just like you. We show you President Trump's speeches in their entirety, free from interruptions and censorship. We cover the stories that matter to you with the integrity and passion you deserve. Thank you for choosing RSBN as your home for America First News. Together, we stand strong, united, and informed. So join us and be part of the right side of history.
President Trump is keeping his promises and saving America. And your kids can learn all about it for free with a new Kids Guide to President Trump. This fun guide shows kids all the steps President Trump is taking to put America back on top of the world stage, including building a strong economy, protecting our borders, and negotiating trade deals. It's an exciting way for kids to learn about President Trump's outstanding leadership. Act now and get a free bonus guide, The Courage of the President. Order now at freetrumpbook.com. That's freetrumpbook.com.
Hey y'all, it's Silk from the Diamond and Silk Chit Chat Live Show. Look, don't forget to check me out right here on RSBN Network. Be sure to watch the show on Right Side Broadcasting Network, and I want you to support Right Side Broadcasting Network. Yes, it's imperative that you do so, okay? I look to see y'all soon. Bye-bye.
I hear every day about the products you all wish MyPillow carried. Well, guess what? We probably do. Slippers, bathrobes, pet beds, blankets, mattresses, sleepwear, loungewear, duvets, comforters, pot holders, aprons, oven mitts, and so much more. And they're all on sale. For example, get our best-selling standard MyPillows for only $14.98. Body pillows, $29.98. 6-piece bath towels or kitchen towel sets, just $29.98. Multi-use MyPillow 2.0s with pillowcase, $9.98. Save $40 on our Spring Percale and Giza Dream bedsheet sets. Any size, any color, and so much more. So go to MyPillow.com or call the number on your screen. Use your promo code to save up to 80% on all MyPillow products. And I've never done this before. When you spend $100 or more, you're going to get 2 standard MyPillows absolutely free.
And hello, welcome back to Right Side Broadcasting Network Live. I'm Robert McNeely. We are covering the latest news from the Trump White House, everything inside and outside of the Beltway. Of course, if you were watching earlier, joined by former Congressman Rod Blum, we even may have another special guest on the show today. So stay tuned for all of the great updates that you're getting. Some inside baseball. You really only receive that here on Right Side Broadcasting Network. We go in depth as a live desk for you, not only to see all of the unbridled access to your government in action, but also we don't cut out the speeches. We don't cut out hearings. We give it to you all access. Other networks, they might come in and sprinkle in some commentary here or there. You get opinion, analysis, in-depth exclusive interviews, but also the hearing and the speeches right there for yourself so you can make up your mind, because we here on the right side of history deeply believe that you are smart enough to do that, as you did peacefully and patriotically, saving this constitutional republic back on November 5th of last year by putting this scholar, this gentleman, this incredible businessman back into the White House. And I think that's something that the left so underestimates about President Trump. He has this ability to communicate with the common man, truly being the blue-collar president, because he knows how to make very complicated things simple. As he was on Trump Force One during the campaign with the future Secretary of Health and Human Services, Bobby Kennedy, he sat down and spoke on this very topic. Secretary Kennedy mentioning that President Trump drew a two-scale diagram of the Middle East and the threats that were in each and every country, especially against radical Islamic terrorism. And he said they underestimate this man because he's able to communicate on such a regular basis. He doesn't feel he's above anyone. And for being someone as a member of the press, although you know my bias, I'm on the right side of the history with you, the American people, fighting for this constitutional republic. But at the same time, I've seen it myself, the unbridled access to this White House, because as Caroline Leavitt put it, the best spokesperson for this administration is none other than President Trump himself. But watch these daily briefings. Watch the press conferences he has in the Oval Office or on the South Lawn or on Air Force One. He's always wanting to answer the questions and get that information out to you in the most transparent way possible in real time to the American people. Now, President Trump yesterday having a series of executive orders mostly focused on the environment and on waterways, especially benefiting the beautiful Wolverine state of Michigan. And I tell my friends, especially down south, they might be surprised if they have not gone to Michigan. It contains in and around it 20% of the world's fresh water, beautiful Great Lakes, just amazing things taking place there. And Gretchen Whitmer, the governor of Michigan, of all people, in the Oval Office with President Trump yesterday. And of course, complimenting her where compliments are due, but also mentioning how great his team was in the Wolverine state to win out against her friend, the former vice president. So President Trump unafraid to work with Republicans and Democrats, because at the end of the day, it's we the people versus a bloated bureaucracy, a deep state, a globalist philosophy that it's an ideology that's really dying, that's going down, that's going into the ash heap of history. And as we were speaking just moments ago with former Congressman Blum of Iowa, just the idea that the spending addiction that this Congress has, it has to come to an end, because the people that helped perpetuate that are all the living former presidents, the predecessors of this great businessman, President Donald Trump, who simply wants to save the country. And to echo the words of people like Senator Rand Paul, this national debt crisis will be the fall of this constitutional republic, ultimately, if we do not get it under control, if we do not get a budgetary item on the books or a budget amendment to stop the crazy spending, to stop the pork barrel, to stop the $36 trillion of debt. It's almost unfathomable what this is amounting to, and it all affects you, the American people, who on average are paying close to hundreds of thousands of dollars on the debt alone. just based on your own personal income. And that's why we advocate for things here like gold and silver to protect yourself from a government that has run wild. Even Alexander Hamilton, the late great Department of Treasury Secretary, the very first, in fact, wanted a strong centralized government in Washington, D.C. But if he were around today, I think he'd be just rolling in his grave over the fact that this town, Washington, D.C., has become as powerful as it has. But thank God for President Trump, who wants to reverse that and give power back to you, the American people, not only in tax cuts, bringing down those corporate rates to 21%, perhaps down to 15% after the success of these tariffs and this tariff battle in order to rearrange and fix the American economy so that we actually manufacture and produce things here again. Our steel workers love it. The United Auto Workers love it. And I got to tell you, the Southeast loves it because we will have more car plants coming into Louisiana, Savannah, Georgia, throughout this beautiful region of the country in order to really kick back into gear this great engine known as the American economy. This is really what President Reagan worked so hard for. President Trump being, in a sense, his 2.0, although you really can't claim at all that Donald Trump is in the second place of anybody because he is the one, the true servant leader, a citizen who came down that golden escalator right in the arena where he built his empire, that Trump Tower, with his beautiful wife, our gracious and lovely First Lady, in order to take on the near impossible. And that was why the deep state got upset. That's why Crossfire Hurricane came across the channels. That's why the FBI and the CIA and people like Crooked Hillary Clinton, and not everyone associated with all of those entities, but those main powerful players decided to spy on this campaign, the campaign of a private citizen who became the 45th and 47th president of the United States. God be with the Trump family because they are true warriors. They have dedicated their lives not only to good quality products, real estate, hospitality, the golf world, but also you, the American people. And it's come at a price, and they are fighting on, and we should have their backs as well. St. Michael, protect them, pray for us as we work to perfect a more united and gracious union. Thank you to our sponsors here at Right Side Broadcasting Network Live, mypillow.com/RSBN. We have the My Mattress Topper sale today. Limited time offer from Mr. Mike Lindell, made in the USA, any size only $99.99. What a great deal on what's super comfy so you get a great day's work in, and that starts with a great night's rest. So support Mike Lindell and Right Side Broadcasting Network by shopping now at mypillow.com/RSBN. 2,000 items for up to 50% off of everything in store. Mike Lindell, a great defender of constitutional principles, freedom of speech, and election integrity, and perhaps the next governor of Minnesota. If he makes an announcement, Mr. Mike Lindell, if you're watching, we'd love to have you here on the show because we are so appreciative not only of your life story and your great company, but the fight that you've taken on to defend this great constitutional republic. mypillow.com/RSBN. 2,000 items for up to 50% off. The limited time now My Mattress Topper sale going on any size for $99.99. Thank you for sponsoring us here at Right Side Broadcasting Network. And angelpaste.com. Experience the miracle today, whether it is the vitamin B miracle cream, non-GMO, no chemicals, the vitamin C orange option, boosting your immunity, or whether it's protecting yourself naturally from mosquitoes. The Lone Star State is home to angelpaste.com in Spring, Texas, just off of the Gulf of America. And let me tell you, great products for guys and gals alike. I tried the miracle cream on the show, and my dry hands literally became a miracle, glowing, refreshed, ready to go for the day. Experience the miracle today. Call them now. Do not delay. Visit that website, and you will get so many great options at angelpaste.com. Christian owned. They hire veterans as well. Thank you for your patriotism, and thank you for supporting the right side of history. And there's a live look from our hometown, it's a beautiful day here in Auburn, Alabama. Of course, the friendliest village on the plains. And I love that, what I believe is that French architecture on the quad there, right along this spot on campus. It's over Toomer's Corner. So you grab a nice lemonade, go for a stroll, perhaps with your loved ones, friends and family, to some great restaurants, great rooftops. So if you go down College, you'll hit a couple of rooftops that you can see the entire campus and have some great food and drink on a beautiful day like this. It's a spring day like no other, about 70 degrees, relatively low humidity, especially for the South. It's just a delightful April day as we welcome in the first full day of competition for the Masters in Augusta, Georgia. And if you go just along the campus there, many good restaurants just around the corner. There's a Mellow Mushroom. You could also see Sky Bar, which you really only want to go to during the day unless you're a college student. I'll be honest about that, because if you go there late into the evening, the college students, they know how to have a good time. So you might want to cut yourself off there at a certain time. But there's a cigar lounge. There is the Graduate that Bo Jackson has really decked out, a lovely coffee shop on the first level. Of course, you can find Charles Barkley up at that top roof of the Graduate as well for some pizza and maybe an old fashioned as well. Of course, this great community celebrating the Final Four. Sadly, our Tigers fell a little bit short, but as Coach Bruce Pearl said, call God, because this team is a group of people, mostly seniors, going on either to the NBA or to continue their servant leadership, whether it be here in Auburn, Alabama, or throughout the country. Great men that he has shaped. And as the coach put it, you know, the worst thing to do is not necessarily be rude to someone, not, even do anything. Think about the rudest thing you have done. You could take all of that. If you ignore someone, that's perhaps the worst. And he does not want his players ignoring their Father God. Isn't it great to see this revival in the United States taking place? And whether it's on the college campus, on sports teams, or within Washington, D.C., the Beltway itself, you see more and more people joining together in prayer and being more open about their Christian faith, and rightfully so, as we cover the latest news from the Trump White House, a White House that has clearly welcomed back God into the fold from a godless administration just over the last 4 years with Mr. Otto Penn and company. It's good to have the professionals back in office, and we are proud to bring you all of this here from Auburn, Alabama. And some people say, too, isn't that funny? A national network, really, in Auburn, Alabama? Of course. Why would you not want to be in real America? That is our focus here on the right side of history, actually talking to the people that make and break the daily grind that is known as this economic engine of the United States. Because think about this, if we're actually successful in getting places like, say, the Department of Agriculture, perhaps also the Department of the Interior. What if they went to Iowa? What if they went to Oklahoma or even the Dakotas? Maybe they go all the way to California. Wherever that may be, the bureaucrats then have to commune and dialogue and even dine with their fellow Americans instead of just being around K Street and all of those lobbyists. And not all lobbyists are bad, but some of them advocating for some really bad things. And as we talked to former Congressman Blum in the last few minutes here, he mentioned that sometimes it becomes this echo chamber. Sometimes it becomes, oh, we got to get this done, got to get that done, and then people forget about you, the American people. Our pledge to you at this network is that we will never forget about you. Like you, we are on the right side of history. We care about our Constitution. We care about our community. We care about the future of this great nation and how each and every life has inherent dignity. It's about life, liberty, the pursuit of happiness. It is in the course of human events that we find ourselves in such a time as this. It's what our founders believed in nearly 250 years ago when they came together to create an independent nation because of being taken advantage by their mother empire. The British just saw us as territories, as a serfdom, people that could not self-govern. Well, we have proved the world wrong for 250 years through conflict, blood, sweat, and tears, in turn helping save Western civilization every step of the way. And through your votes just last year to the present day, 80 days into this new administration, whether it's President Trump or Elon Musk, his extraordinary cabinet, or the Republican-led populist MAGA Maha movement, it is a group of people committed to really bringing that fundamental principle back to you, the American people, on self-reliance, self-governance, a constitutional republic, as Ben Franklin told his friend outside of Independence Hall as he yelled, Mr. Franklin, what kind of government did you give us? And the response was, a republic, my friend, if you can keep it. Well, we have for 250 years. We've been on tinkering and flirting with other forms of that, but the communists will lose, the fascists will lose, the Marxists will lose, and the perverts that want to destroy this nation will ultimately lose, because it's God's nation, and we have people with his vision back at 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue, and thank you for that. It is Christmas every day in this great nation. I continue to smile, but we're not resting on our laurels. We're bringing everything, unbridled access to you, the American people, on a daily basis so that you could see your government in action. In fact, we have some playback regarding just some of those executive orders yesterday, Mr. Director. If we have that quick video of what took place in the Oval Office, President Trump was actually joking about how he wants, in a serious matter with the clean air and water, but he needs that water to wash his big, beautiful hair. So enjoying that moment, of course, Howard Lutnick, the Department of Commerce Secretary, having a chuckle there. We'll toss that there live now.
The Biden administration launched what you called a war on showers. They had certain regulations that basically killed the water pressure of showers and other water appliances.
You can say it. Go ahead. What are the appliances?
I mean, it's everything, sir.
Sinks and toilets.
Dishwashers, toilets, sinks. But the shower heads are a huge
There's no
deal.
water. You don't get water. It's ridiculous.
So with this executive order, we're effectively going to be reversing that set of regulations to ensure that Americans have choice in the consumer market. If they want a low-flow shower head, they can buy one. If they want a real deal shower head,
That's true. If you buy a new house, you pay a lot of money, and the developers, you're not allowed to do anything more. They put restrictors on. They used to have a restrictor where you could take it out, but now they weld it in. And you take a shower or wash your hands, whatever you do, including dishwashers when no water comes out. But you wash your hands, and in my case, I like to take a nice shower to take care of my beautiful hair. I stand under the shower for 15 minutes till it gets wet. It comes out drip, drip, drip. It's ridiculous.
And we see the smiles in the office. Secretary Duffy, Lutnick, also Besant, and of course, Doug Burgum doing an amazing job at Interior. But yeah, it's a great hairdo, and you got to make sure it's nice and clean. And we should have clean air, clean water. We're a first world nation, and thank God for that. But yeah, again, common sense right at the table. But it's great to see that truth in comedy. And Mr. Director, again, the sponsor you want me to share today. Yes, Tax Network USA. And how could I forget, given the fact that next week is tax day? Oh my goodness. It's the favorite day of congressional Democrats. TNUSA.com/RSBN. Settle those back taxes now. Protect yourself from the IRS. 800-357-1415. That's 800-357-1415. Protect yourself from the IRS. Settle those back taxes now. You could visit TNUSA.com/RSBN. Again, that number, 800-357-1415. The Patriot experts at Tax Network USA know how to settle those back taxes, or if it's property taxes, to state income taxes, to federal, they can protect you. We actually have a live shot now of the president that we will toss to, discussing a number of things with his cabinet, but also perhaps some executive orders. But let's go there live now and see what's going on in the cabinet room at the White House.
Thank you very much. We had a very good meeting. We're talking about a lot of different things. Consumer prices have actually dropped. There's very little inflation. Everybody predicted a lot of inflation, very little inflation. Energy costs are down. Interest rates are probably down. They scatter, but they're probably down. Prescription drug prices are even to down. We're doing very well. It's been amazing. We had a big day yesterday. There'll always be transition difficulty, but we had in history, it was the biggest day in history, the markets. So we're very, very happy with the way the country's running. We're trying to get the world to treat us fairly. This is something that should have been done 25 years ago, and it wasn't. Should have been done 40 years ago, and it wasn't. But no president was willing to take it on. But you had to. It's not sustainable. It wasn't sustainable. And as you know, without a lot of money being added, which is a lot of money that we could add, the country is making approximately $2 billion a day. And when you think of it, we've never done that before, never come close to it. And the number is probably $3.5 billion a day. And that makes us a very strong country. But we have Scott here and Howard and some of the people that are working on deals. And the biggest problem they have is they don't have enough time in the day. Everybody wants to come and make a deal. And we're working with a lot of different countries, and it's all going to work out very well. I think it's going to work out really very well. But we're in good shape. There's no inflation. There's very little inflation. And I went 4 years without inflation, and I took in hundreds of billions of dollars from China and others, taxes in China. But we took in hundreds of billions of dollars a year from China, and we had no inflation, essentially. So we think we're in very good shape. We think we're doing very well. Again, there'll be a transition cost and transition problems, but in the end, it's going to be a beautiful thing. We're doing again what we should have done many years ago. We let it get out of control, and we allowed some countries to get very big and very rich at our expense, and can't let that happen. It's not a sustainable formula. So I wanted to just thank everybody at the table, and maybe I'll go around and ask some of you a little short couple of answers. Pete just got back from Panama, and he's been all over the place, and you want to give us a little report on that and whatever else you might have to say. Everyone at this table is doing an incredible job, by the way, I have to say. Incredible. And the relationships are, it's like they're friends. They're really, the relationships are very strong, really good, really strong. And these meetings are very good. And I think, I don't believe there's any other president that allowed the press to come into a meeting such as this. These are very sacred meetings. These are very private meetings. But we have nothing to hide. And I think it's good. I think it's a good, we want to be, a word you like to use, Jeff, is transparent. So we want to be transparent, and we'll do that by starting with Pete. Go ahead, Pete.
Yes, Mr. President, we just got back from Panama last night. We were at the Panama Canal with their Southcom commander ships, F-18s, troops, and signed a couple of historic deals. One which is with the Panama Canal Authority, a framework for U.S. vessels, first and free through the Panama Canal. Right. And then also a memorandum of understanding with their security minister for the presence of U.S. troops. Fort Sherman is an old U.S. base there, as well as their naval station and air station, jointly with Panama to secure the Panama Canal from Chinese influence. That's something you said, we're taking back the canal. China's had too much influence. Obama and others let them creep in. We, along with Panama, are pushing them out, sir. And so we had a very successful trip there. President Molino sends his regards, very complimentary of the U.S. as he's a great ally, and I think they want the Communist Chinese out. And with our troops there partnering with their forces, we've got a chance to push them all the way out, sir.
We've moved a lot of troops to Panama and filled up some areas that we used to have, and we didn't have any longer, but we have them now. and I think it's in very good control, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you, Pete. Very good. Howard?
So, so we've have so many countries to talk to. It is, it's incredible. I think Scott and I, I'm not sure we could ever have enough time in the day to talk to all these countries because they want to talk and they want to talk now, and they have come with offers that they never, ever would have come with, but for the moves that the president has made. Demanding that people treat the United States with respect. We're getting the respect we deserve now, and I think you're going to see historic deals, one after the other. And then I'm very excited that within a week and a half, we're going to start with the gold card. And the Trump card is coming out, and we're very excited about that, and that's coming soon. So very excited.
Good. Thank you very much. Good job. Linda?
Well, on a couple of fronts, we have been addressing the issue of anti-Semitism on campuses. There's been some grant funding and contract funding that we've reviewed, and some canceled and some we've put on hold, waiting for that, while we do an investigation. On the other side of what my responsibilities are and having education go back to the states, we're meeting and talking with governors. I was with, this week, all 50 commissioners of education around the country, and because we also want to provide them with tools and best practices as education does move back to the states. Making great progress, great response from the states, and very positive.
And what about colleges? You're holding back $400 million from Columbia, $8 billion from Harvard. Can you imagine the money we pay Harvard? They have a $60 billion fund, and we're giving them $8 billion, and we're trying to figure that out. And then they hire de Blasio, the worst mayor in the history of New York, and they hired the woman from Chicago who was a disaster, total disaster, and they pay them massive salaries, and they're supposed to be teaching you government. That's not Harvard. That's not Harvard the way it used to be. So do you have anything to say about that? The dollars you're holding back from quite a few universities that were not behaving.
Yeah, and the other, there's some Princeton, Cornell, others that are coming in, and actually getting calls now from the presidents of the universities who really do want to come in and sit down and have discussions. And so we're investigating them, but in the meantime, we're holding back the grant and the fund money.
Okay, great job. Thank you.
Very thankful for the House voting for the president's budget resolution along with the Senate bill. Made a ton of progress this week in working with members to ensure that a desire for flexibility in the Senate was not misconstrued as a desire not to slow and do spending reforms. And so we're very thankful for that. And now we can get after writing that bill, getting the president as big a package of his agenda to his desk. So very good week.
Good. We just got the House vote, and now we're well on our way to getting, as we call it, the great big beautiful bill. It's a beauty. There's never been a bill like this one. We're trying to get it all into one beautiful bill. It's tax cuts, regulation cuts, and many other things. The border, a lot of money for the border, where you're doing a fantastic job. So, but we just got a report that we, as you know, you knew before us. Were you surprised we got the vote? We got the vote, and we're happy to get the vote. So I think we're going to be in very good shape. Okay, please.
Mr. President, last year the Chinese received 1,700 orders for new ships. American shipyards received 5. Under your leadership, like so many other industries, we are going to revitalize and make shipbuilding and maritime great again with these blue-collar jobs. These are the cranes, the ports, opportunity zones, and drive that investment back in. And we have, under that executive order, and also one to streamline foreign military sales for people that want to buy our equipment, and of course acquisition reform, all just this week under your leadership, Mr. President.
So we're going to be rebuilding our shipbuilding business. We may would have to go to Congress for this, but we may buy some ships from other countries that we're close to and that do great jobs with ships, but we're going to start the process of rebuilding. We don't really essentially build ships anymore, which is ridiculous. It's going to be a very big business for us in the not too distant future, but in the meantime, we have countries that do very well at building ships, and we'll be dealing with those countries, and we may be ordering top-of-the-line ships from those countries. And within a fairly short period of time, we'll be building our own ships. So we'll probably have to go to Congress for that, but we're not going to have a problem. Susie, thank you very much for the job you've done. Go ahead, please.
I just want to make sure you know that this cabinet, I think, pretty uniquely collaborates and cooperates and works together to accomplish all that you've asked them to do, and I think they deserve a lot of credit for that.
True. You're doing a great job. The chief of staff, doing a great job. Lee, go ahead.
Mr. President, the Biden EPA was strangulating the economy. The Trump EPA understands it's not a binary choice. We can protect the environment and grow the economy. Working with Doge and Elon Musk, we've now canceled $22 billion worth of grants, and we have launched what is the largest deregulatory action in the history of the country, just in one agency. That's how much of a mess the Biden EPA left us. It is going to end up reducing the cost of living. It's going to create jobs. It's going to make it easier to purchase a car. It will be easier to heat your home. We're proud of this effort. The effort that we have is fulfilling the mandate that you earned from the American public. Clean air, land, and water for all Americans, unleashing energy dominance, permitting reform, advancing cooperative federalism, making America the AI capital of the world, and bringing back American auto jobs. When you called me that day asking for me to take this position, I was honored. And you were very specific and clear in what you wanted us to accomplish. We understand our mission, and at the Trump EPA, we're going to make you proud.
Great job. You're doing a great job. And you have a lot of applications for approvals for power plants, which are going to really power the regular plants, and they're going to be right next to each other because we can't rely on our grid. It's old and it's tired, and it's very subject to being attacked, whether by rain or by bombs or by anything else. And we're letting people build their own power plants, and these are a lot of them being built with the AI and beyond the AI chips, and we're letting them build their own power, and never been done before, and we're going to get it done quickly and approved quickly. As part of a plant, they'll have a sort of be their own power company, and it's very exciting. They couldn't believe it when I told them that. I said, we're going to get you the approvals very fast as part of your regular plant. You're going to build electric producing plants, and it's very exciting. And they're able to do it very quickly and very well. And you made it possible. Thank you. You have a lot of applications for some of the biggest plants that have ever been built in the world. These are serious plants, aren't they? Huh?
Approved. We are open for business. Working with Secretary Burgum, Secretary Wright, we are going to make you proud.
Sean?
First off, Mr. President, it's Brooke's birthday today, so she keeps getting younger, so happy birthday to Brooke.
Thank you.
I want to thank you as well for the shipbuilding at EO. Again, to build ships, we also need mariners to sail those ships. I was just up at Kings Point for the Merchant Marine Academy a couple days ago, and we have some of the greatest young men and women who are learning how to be mechanical engineers, to rebuild and fix the engines on those ships, but also how to sail ships. I would tell you that over the past decades, this academy has become, it needs some love. It's been a little bit dilapidated. We have to invest in sailors, and I appreciate you taking the initiative. To be a global power, we have to build ships and have sailors to sail those ships. These are the very people that help Pete should we come into points of crisis to support the military. So thank you for that. Number two, the last administration announced 3,200 projects, big, beautiful roads and bridges. Most of them are good. But they announced them. They didn't sign a grant agreement. 3,200, so the money doesn't go out the door to build the infrastructure in the country. And it's fun to do an announcement. It's actually the harder work to put together these grant agreements. So we're doing the work right now at DOT to get these grant agreements done and build the projects. Most of them are good. And they also put in all of this green and social justice requirements on roads and bridges. We're pulling all that out and putting the money toward the infrastructure, not the social movement from the last administration.
Good steel, right, as opposed to green paper mache. Good, Thanks. Great job.
Sir, first, we are, I would say, more than friends. We've all become family. And I think that what you have assembled in your vision is a turning point and an inflection point in American history. And so just being a part of that is the greatest honor. So thank you for that. And again, just the relationships here and the honor and respect we have for each other is a reflection of you and your leadership. So I just wanted to say that first. The second thing I want to say is that on behalf of the farmers and ranchers, food security is national security. We have to be able to feed ourselves. And your idea of using tariffs along with deregulation and tax cuts, but your idea of using tariffs to ensure that we are putting forward and putting America first, no one understands that better than our farmers and our ranchers. But having said that, emerging from 4 years of Biden with a 30% increase in inputs for our farmers and ranchers, with an almost $50 billion trade deficit. When we left the first time, it was zero, meaning that they are hurting. So the period of uncertainty we're in, they know that your vision will move us into an age of prosperity for all Americans, but for my people, for the farmers and ranchers, unlike any they have seen before. And I think they are really, really excited and so grateful for your leadership. But also, you have never failed to say that you have the backs of our farmers and our ranchers. It was the first phone call that I had after I was voted with the Senate, and that message just resonates with almost an 85% support of you in the last election. They're with you. Interestingly, the biggest budget driver at the United States Department of Agriculture is not farming and ranching or agriculture, it's food stamps. And so as we emerge and embark, Secretary Kennedy and I, on your vision of making America healthy again, a massive part of that is realigning and reworking our food stamp program so that it better serves those who need it. And yeah, to the point of getting the transgender, DEI, Green New Deal out of the USDA and realigning is really important. So
It's out of the
thank
military,
you.
right?
Yes, sir.
Is it 100% out, would you say?
99.9, sir. We're going to get that last point
Get the
one out.
rest of it. We've got a much different military, I will tell you. Thanks very much. Good job. And eggs are down.
Eggs are
big,
down.
right?
Yes.
Big.
Yes, sir. Wholesale prices. Retail will come. Easter is the Super Bowl for eggs. So, there may be a little fluctuation, but no, we feel really good about it. Thank you.
That's what I hear. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good. I'd echo what Howard said on the trade queue, that we've got over 75 countries that want to come in. So it'll be Treasury, Commerce, Jameson at USTR, and we're putting a process in place. And as you said, you're going to be part of the negotiations too, because I've had these countries call me up and the Secretary Bessent, we're happy you're going to be negotiating. I said, well, President Trump's going to be involved too. So bring your best deal on the budget. It's moving quickly in the House and the Senate, thanks to your leadership. We're also going to have debt ceiling in there, so we're going to get an increase in the debt ceiling. And that will be the done and dusted for
Part of the bill that we just got to vote on today.
part of the bill. It'll be done and dusted for 2 years. We won't have to worry about that. And then I gave a speech yesterday to 1,400 small and community bankers, and they were so happy to hear from your administration. And I told them Wall Street's done great for the past 4 years, 10 years, 20 years. It can continue doing great, but it's Main Street's turn now, and it's those small bankers through deregulation, through emphasis on Main Street, your Main Street agenda, bringing back jobs, that is going to power the smaller communities. And then finally, the bond auction went very well yesterday. We had a lot of foreigners show up as the support, showing that the U.S. is still the best place to invest. The inflation report, as you said, was quite good. And energy prices are down more than 20% since January 20th.
Amazing.
That's great. Very good. Good numbers.
Great number.
Thank you. Pam?
President, we've had some great wins in the last few days. That you were overwhelmingly elected by the biggest majority the U.S. Americans want you to be president because of your agenda. And the courts are ruling that you have the authority to determine how the money of this country will be spent. That's what the American citizens wanted, and that's what they're getting. An example of that Friday was the Department of Education, that you can determine how the money will be spent. No more DEI. And that impacts every agency across the board. On the civil side, again, NLRB. We had a big win in the Supreme Court there. OPM, a big win there. But also 16,000 workers there. But also on the criminal side, the Alien Enemies Act. We are winning there. And, you know, your directive to me was to keep America safe, and that's what we're doing. Whether it's the alien enemies, all of these gangs, and they are enemies of our country. They are terrorists. They are organized crime. They have come here. They are extremely organized. They are spread throughout our country, and they are creating terror. And no more under your directive. And that has stopped. Yesterday in South Florida, we charged 11 defendants with $500 million of pure cocaine coming into our country to kill our kids. They were caught. They will be prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law. These gang members are going back to where they came, or they're going to an El Salvador prison at your directive. And, you know, you also gave us a directive to prosecute the people who are going after Tesla to the fullest extent of the law, some of the greatest police work I've seen. We've made 4 arrests. There will be no negotiations at your directive. They're all looking at 20 years in prison, and within the next 24 hours, you're going to be seeing another huge arrest on a Tesla dealership, President. And that person will be looking at least 20 years in prison with no negotiations.
That's great. That's great. That will stop it. Cold.
Domestic terrorism.
Thanks. Doing a great job, too. Thank you very much. Lori, please.
Mr. President, accountability matters. That's what we're recognizing. With our partners at the Department of Labor for Government Efficiency, just a few weeks ago, we realized there's about $4.4 billion in COVID funds that were not used, that the state coffers were just holding on to. Out of that, we've returned $1.4 billion back to the state treasury, so essentially to the American people, and we'll go back and claw the rest of those billions of dollars back. And on the heels of that, late last night, we're understanding unemployment insurance fraud. That trust needs to be whole for the American people. When we need it for who deserves it. That's not what we're seeing. And the numbers that we saw last night, again, exposed by our partners at DOJ at the Department of Labor. Since 2020, over $400 million of payments have gone out already. And when you hear these numbers, apparently in the United States, we have over almost 25,000 people who are over 115 years old who are collecting $59 million that we have sent out to people. Talk about fraudulent behavior. Mr. President, 28,000 people between 1 and 5 years old have collected fraudulent payments at the tune of $254 million has gone out. And lastly, 10,000 people who have not been born yet, 15 years into the future, $69 million, and they haven't even been born yet. In one case, they will be born 129 years from now. The United States government sent them $41,000, and they're not born yet. So, under the Department of Labor, those are the things that we're uncovering. I couldn't be more honored to tell the American people that we're bringing back their dollars and we're saving them and returning them to the United States Treasury. Also, jobs numbers. Last Friday, 228,000 new jobs were reported. That is good for the American people. That is my primary job, is to grow that workforce under your leadership. So we've kicked off the America at Work tour, and we'll be visiting all 50 states, and I'll be working with my colleagues here to do just that. So thank you, Mr. President. We're going to grow this economy. We're going to keep our focus on the American worker.
So you're finding tremendous fraud, though. Those numbers are really bad when you're
unheard of.
Over 115 years old. And I think you had mentioned the oldest person in our country is 114 years old. That's pretty good.
A woman living in Pennsylvania, but apparently there's 24,000 more of them that are 115 or older. That
I hope you hear that. So we have 24,000 older than the oldest person.
Definitely good.
That's terrible. And what are we doing about that? How do we get that money back?
Yeah, so we're working with our IGs to do the further investigation. The House and Senate, we had a 5-year statute of limitations We've had an extension on that another 5 years. And so the goal, in my opinion, we should never have a statute of limitations to return the American dollars back to the Treasury when there's fraud. But at this point, we will continue to work hard and double down and return those dollars to the Treasury.
Great. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Great job. Christy?
Well, Mr. President, thank you for your leadership at the border. For the second month in a row, you have broken the record in the history of the nation for the lowest number of encounters at the border, which is absolutely remarkable. You have said that America's laws matter and that they'll be enforced, and we're hard at work now to get people to go back home that are here illegally. So the Alien Registration Act has been in place long enough now that those individuals that are here illegally, if they haven't registered, then they can be charged criminally, and they can face fines up to $1,000 a day and face deportation if they don't go home, and they'll never get the chance to come back to America. So we're encouraging people to use the CBP Home app to register, and we're working on the resources and funding to buy them a plane ticket to send them home. I went to El Salvador, Colombia, and Mexico, and those countries and others are thinking about setting up programs to support these individuals when they get back to their country. So when they get there, they'll have housing and food assistance, and so making sure that these folks have the opportunity to go home so that they can get the chance to come back to America is important. And
So it's a very big self-deport operation that we're starting.
thousands of people have already
Yeah.
self-deported. Well, we're just going to, when you have 21 million people that need to go home because they're here breaking our laws, then we need to facilitate that. And I've been working with the governors a lot lately on several different issues. One of them has been on FEMA for recommendations on how to do exactly what you've directed us to do. And then also I sent a letter and communicated with them that they need to be setting up a SCIF. Some of our governors don't have secure facilities to have national security issues. I think one of the jobs Homeland Security has is to give communication down to states, to local cities and communities. And so recommending they get a SCIF, they have secure comms with them at all times or nearby so that they can have national security conversations, and then to have somebody in their office designated that is their communications person. A lot of them have emergency management officers, but they don't necessarily have somebody designated when it comes to a national security issue that we may need to communicate with them on. And I think American people need to know that Real ID will be required to travel on May 7th. So those governors have been notified to communicate that at home. We don't want anybody to get delayed and not be able to travel when they get to an airport. And this will also help us bring integrity back to all of our IDs and how they're used for issuing driver's licenses. And governors know how I feel about making sure their driver's licensing system has integrity, because a lot of people use their driver's license to vote. And the backbone of our country and the foundation is election integrity. So we're giving all those directions to our governors and communicating that so they can lead on it as well.
And we're going to work with people so that if they go out in a nice way, go back to their country, we're going to work with them right from the beginning on trying to get them back in legally. Is that right? So it gives you a real incentive. Otherwise, they never come back. They'll never be allowed once a certain period of time goes by, which is probably going to be 60 days. We're also going to work with farmers that if they have strong recommendations for their farms for certain people, we're going to let them stay in for a while and work with the farmers and then come back and go through a process, a legal process. But we have to take care of our farmers and hotels and various places where they need the people. And we're going to be working with you very carefully on that. So a farmer will come in with a letter concerning certain people saying they're great, they're working hard. We're going to slow it down a little bit for them. And then we're going to ultimately bring them back. They'll go out. They're going to come back as legal workers. Okay?
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Which I think will be I think it's very important to do. Okay, thank you very much. Great job. Jameson, I watched you testify for the last
he did
couple of days. You were on every night at 3 o'clock in the morning. And you did great. You were fantastic. Thank you very much.
It's just what I like to do for fun, sir. You've been keeping us very busy. Last week, you started a reordering of international trade, something that hasn't happened for 80 years, something that should have happened decades ago. And you know that. You've known that for a long time. That's why you have us all working on this. You came into an emergency situation where President Biden left us with a $1.2 trillion trade deficit. It's the largest of any country in human history, the largest. So you declared an emergency, you took action.
You say the largest in history, right?
In history.
There's never been anything like what he left us. He left us a mess. His whole administration was a mess. So go ahead.
So you declared an emergency, you imposed a trade action, so now you have a tariff on the world, it promotes U.S. manufacturing, it protects U.S. workers, and you've also given room for negotiation during this time so we can open export markets for our farmers and other producers and American workers. And this is why the unions vote for you, this is why the workers vote for you, this is why the families want you to be the president, because you're standing up for American workers and American communities. We've had countries come in over the past couple of weeks that represent more than half of global domestic GDP, more than half. That's who's coming in to talk to you and to your advisors about how to have reciprocal trade, how to have fair trade. Wouldn't have happened without you.
Thank you very much. Great job. Lovely live.
Well, thanks to your fantastic leadership, this amazing cabinet, and the very talented DOGE team, I'm excited to announce that we anticipate savings in FY26 from reduction of waste and fraud by $150 billion. And I mean, and some of it is just absurd, like people getting unemployment insurance who haven't been born yet. I mean, I think anyone can appreciate whether, I mean, come on, that's just crazy. You know, some of these things, if people ask me like, well, how are you going to find waste and fraud in the government? I'm like, well, actually just go in any direction. That's how you find it. It's very common. it's, as the military would say, target-rich environment. So I think we're doing a lot of good in excellent collaboration with the cabinet to achieve these savings. And it will actually result in better services for the American people, and that we're going to be spending their tax dollars in a way that is sensible and fair and good.
And your people are fantastic. In fact, hopefully they'll stay around for the long haul. We'd like to keep as many as we can. They're great, smart, sharp, right? Finding things that nobody would have thought of. Very computer savvy.
Yes. We're working with hard to get the Trump Gold Card operational, hopefully in the next week or so.
That'll be very exciting. It's
really exciting.
That's a pathway to citizenship into the United States.
It's a big deal.
Yep, it's a big deal. Thank you very much. Great job you're doing.
Thank you, sir. Thanks to your leadership and setting the mandate of transparency and accountability across the U.S. government. I'm bringing that transparency and accountability to the intelligence community, first and foremost, to make sure that you and your cabinet have that real-time, relevant, apolitical, objective intelligence to best inform, whether it's negotiations for peace, negotiations around tariffs, the great work that you are leading around the cabinet today. Secondly, working with Department of Homeland Security and the FBI to increase our information sharing to achieve your goal of countering the narcotic trafficking and our ability to go after cartels now designated as foreign terrorists. I met with the National Sheriff's Association this week, being able to work to make sure that the information that they are getting on the ground, that local law enforcement is getting on the ground, is being fed back up through to our National Counterterrorism Center, and that we have all of the federal agencies, state and local law enforcement, all on the same page as we are working to make our country safe again. And lastly, sir, as you know, declassification and rooting out weaponization, politicization of the intelligence community is a huge priority. You know more than anyone else the very dangerous and negative consequences of that. I've got a long list of things that we're investigating. We have the best of the best going after this. Election integrity being one of them. We have evidence of how these electronic voting systems have been vulnerable to hackers for a very long time and vulnerable to exploitation to manipulate the results of the votes being cast, which further drives forward your mandate to bring about paper ballots across the country so that voters can have faith in the integrity of our elections. And lastly, we've been scanning. I've had over 100 people working around the clock to scan the paper around RFK, Senator Robert F. Kennedy's assassination, as well as Martin Luther King Jr.'s assassination, These have been sitting in boxes in storage for decades. They have never been scanned or seen before. We'll have those ready to release here within the next few days.
That's great. Bobby, how do you feel about that? That's hitting,
I'm very gratified to hear.
That's hitting close to home, isn't it?
no
When you think,
Yeah.
I'm thinking about Bobby when
No.
when that statement's made.
I'm very grateful to you, Mr. President.
And you'll let Bobby see some of this because, you know, it's very personal stuff. But it's time.
I've asked him, and his response is, put it out. The world needs to know the truth.
And his uncle that's been out, and anything that hasn't been out, they can go to your offices and see, right?
Everything that we have within our possession, it's either online or it's physically at the National Archives and Records Agency. We also have hunters going out, Mr. President, and looking in the storage lockers at FBI and CIA and other agencies, specifically to find if there is anything else that has not been reported. We're actively going out and trying to search out the truth.
Okay. Yeah, we want to get it all out.
Yes.
100% good. Thank you very much. Good job, guys.
Mr. President, on behalf of America's manufacturers, I want to thank you for standing up to the Chinese Communist Party and fighting for our main streets, for our workers, and for those that make things in America. I'm out on a Made in America manufacturing tour, and as I go across the country, people are grateful to have a president who's not just fighting on the tariffs fronts, but to get inflation down, to create jobs. After Biden destroyed 110,000 manufacturing jobs in just his last year, you've already brought back thousands and thousands of manufacturing jobs. So the American worker is grateful. Main Street is grateful for you. And at the agency level, we're making sure that manufacturers have access to the capital they need, but we can't do that if we're not fighting fraud. So we've modified our loan applications to have citizenship verification, to make sure we have birth dates, common sense principles around lending that the Biden administration had waived. They waived $450 million of fees in 1 year. We're restoring that for the American taxpayer. And the American taxpayer, as tax day approaches, April 15th, they need to know that this cabinet, this administration, and thank you Elon Musk and Doge for fighting for the American taxpayer to make sure that their hard-earned dollars are well spent, that they have a return on investment for this country, and that we're fighting for them just as you are every single day. So thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you very much.
Mr. President, we are working at HHS to advance your agenda to make America healthy again. I'm working with Lee Zeldin to reassess the fluoride rules based upon the August release by the National Toxicity Program of new science that shows a direct inverse correlation between exposure to fluoride and IQ loss, particularly in children. Lee and I were in Utah this week, to announce that Utah became the first state in the country to ban supplemental fluoride. I'm working with Brooke on and governors now in 24 states who are advancing MAHA legislation to get soda pops off of the food stamp program, off the SNAP program. We've launched Operation Stork Speed to get the bad chemicals out of baby formula. We're working with governors across the country to get good food into the school lunch programs and to get rid of food chemical dyes and other bad chemicals that are in our food. We've shown now that this directly affects academic performance, violence in the schools, and mental health, as well as physical health. We are working with governors across the country to get cell-to-cell or bell-to-bell legislation to restrict the use of cell phones in schools, which again dramatically impacts academic performance. Today we announced a dramatic reduction in animal testing at NIH and FDA. We're going to switch over to AI, which we've now found is much more precise in identifying the impacts of toxics in various products. We're working with Elon, who's done an incredible job to eliminate the redundancies and to streamline operations at all the health agencies and to
calibrate our trajectory to your agenda of making America healthy again. And finally, on the CDC has done an amazing job at getting the measles outbreak under control. We have about 680 cases now in 22 states, compared to the same outbreak in Europe, which is 127,000 cases and 37 deaths. Our numbers in this country have now plateaued. And I want to thank CDC for that. And we're trying to refocus the press. We've had 3 measles deaths in this country over 20 years. And we're trying to refocus the press to get them to pay attention to the chronic disease epidemic as you've asked us to. We have now 38% of American youth are pre-diabetic. This was unknown 30 years ago. Every child that becomes diabetic, there should be a headline about them. We have 100 million adults who are pre-diabetic or diabetic. And we have, we have now, the autism rates have gone from now, most recent numbers we think are going to be about 1 in 31. 1 in 12, so they're going up again. From 1 in 10,000 when I was a kid. And we are going, at your direction, we are going to know by September. We've launched a massive testing and research effort that's going to involve hundreds of scientists from around the world. By September, we will know what has caused the autism epidemic, and we'll be able to eliminate those exposures.
So big. Think of that. So it was 1 in 10,000 children had autism, and now it's 1 in 31. Not 31,000, 31. That's a horrible statistic, isn't it? And there's got to be something artificial out there that's doing this. So you think you're going to have a pretty good idea, huh?
We will know by September.
There will be no bigger news conference than that. So that's it. If you can come up with that answer where you stop taking something, you stop eating something, or maybe it's a shot, but something's causing it. It can't be from 10,000 to. Can you imagine that, Marco? That's a big number. Thank you very much. You're doing great. Thank you, Bobby. Please, Doug.
Well, Mr. President, one of your primary administration goals is to make sure that we unleash American energy, and of course the strategy behind that is when we do that, it helps make it more affordable for all Americans. Energy isn't just industry, it is the foundation of every other industry, whether it's food, manufacturing, clothing, transportation. And then also when we've got the ability to generate and not just be energy independent but energy dominant, then we have the opportunity to sell energy to our friends and allies versus them buy it from our adversaries. And our adversaries were funding terrorism and conflicts against our allies by their oil and gas sales that were going through a Swiss cheese set of sanctions. So with your creation of the National Energy Dominance Council, over half the people at this table serve on that. Everyone has been engaged, whether it's interactions with negotiations with other countries, with putting sanctions in place that actually work, with cutting deregulation, working on biofuels, building infrastructure for transportation. There's a whole range of things that are being tackled. But when the outcome of all that is that the Biden administration was restricting supply, you're increasing supply. When you increase supply, then prices start to come down. And we have a huge opportunity to do this. Just in interior alone, there's 500 million acres of surface, 700 million acres of subsurface, and 2.5 billion acres of offshore. And the Biden administration was trying to restrict this so that you couldn't get a timber lease, you couldn't cut a tree, you couldn't graze a cow, you couldn't develop oil and gas minerals, and you couldn't develop the critical minerals we need for our technology, for our defense industries, and to be able to help us win the AI arms race against China. So we're opening up this, and with your executive orders and your work, we've on Tuesday, a historic day, you ended the war on beautiful clean coal, which has been going on since Obama took office. China gets 60% of their electricity from coal. They're opening up a They've opened up 94 gigawatts of coal in the last year as part of this AI arms race. 94 gigawatts, that's enough for 94 Denvers to be able to, 1 gigawatt per metro area like that. It's unheard of. So what we have an opportunity under your leadership to come back. The Gulf of America had its first offshore lease sale, which is scheduled for later this year, but that was, the industry loved that because we're now, the Gulf of America is now open for business again. And there's as much as 7 billion barrels of oil accessible now. They've increased the upside of what they think that is. On the coal front, the estimate is the financial value of the coal in America is $8 trillion. That was an asset on the balance sheet that we've now being put back on again. And of course, in Alaska, with your separate executive orders to unleash Alaska energy between ANWR, the North Slope, the Strategic Petroleum Reserve Alaska, all of those, we've reversed Biden decision. Those are all open for business again. And all of this is leading to the investment coming to America. The smart money is coming to the U.S. That's why we've got trillions of dollars of investment that are showing up at the door, because they know if they're going to do manufacturing here, there's going to be energy to power their plants. And so, again, thank you for your leadership and thank you for everything you're doing.
Very good. Thank you. Marco?
Well, Mr. President, one of the most important things I believe you'll achieve in your presidency is reordering the world in a proper way. For 31 years, more than 31 years now, multiple administrations have allowed the Chinese to deindustrialize this country, to take away jobs and factories and the pillars of our national strength. And what you're doing now, I think, is a great service to our country, but ultimately to the world. And I want to congratulate you and your team that's working on that, because it has extraordinary geopolitical implications, as you see from all these other countries that are now coming here and wanting to join something that actually makes it's crazy to allow these. I mean, basically, we lived in a world where Chinese companies can do whatever they want in America, but our companies cannot do anything over there unless they allow it, and even then they steal our stuff and reverse engineer it. So just reordering all of that has dramatic implications on peace and security of the world. So we thank you. An important meeting, thanks to you, is going to happen on Saturday for the first time in a long time. There'll be direct talks between Ambassador Woodcoff and a top-level leader in Iran. We hope that'll lead to peace. You've been very clear what Iran is never going to have is a nuclear weapon, and I think that's what led to this meeting, and we'll wait for him to come back from it, and we're hopeful about that. I would also say that we are receiving, and I think the Department of Homeland Security can confirm this, historic cooperation from countries all over the world. Number one, in taking back their citizens. Every country in the world has to take back people that are illegally in another country, and we have countries that refuse to do it or will kind of ignore our calls. All of them are doing it. The ones that are not are paying a price. And we've also found cooperation in other countries that are willing to take some of these people, some very dangerous criminals. I know the President of El Salvador will be here next week, has really been a good friend of the United States in that regard. These are some of the worst people you'll ever encounter, and Pam knows this, and Christy knows this from the work they're doing. And one last point I want to make, Mr. President, and again, it's under your leadership, it's actually under your executive order. If you come to this country as a student, we expect you to go to class and study and get a degree. If you come here to vandalize a library, take over a campus, and do all kinds of crazy things, we're going to get rid of these people, and we're going to continue to do it. So when we identify lunatics like these, we take away their student visa. No one's entitled to a student visa. The press covers student visas like there's some sort of birthright. No, a student visa is like me inviting you into my home. If you come into my home and put all kinds of crap on my couch, I'm going to kick you out of my house. And so, that's what we're doing with our country, thanks to the President. And last but not least, very important development this week, but both Pam and I were very excited. The finest higher education institution in the United States, the University of Florida, is also now the national champions in basketball, and we hope you'll host them here soon, Mr. President. Go Gators.
They're coming.
Good for the SEC.
They're coming very soon. Well, thank you very much. You're really doing a great job. We appreciate it. Any question?
Mr. President, can you give us a reaction to today's stock market drop, and also give us a sense of the next steps with China?
Well, I haven't seen it because I've been here for 2.5 hours, so I'll be seeing it. I think Scott went out. Scott, you want to have a statement on that?
Sure. Look, the up 2, down 1 is not a bad ratio, or up 10, down 5. And I think, as we have talked about, as we go through the queue and settle with these countries who are going to bring us their best offers, we will end up in a place of great certainty over the next 90 days on tariffs. but we had very good inflation numbers today. Oil's down. We had a successful bond market, so I don't see anything unusual today.
And next steps for China, sir?
Well, we'll see what happens with China. We would love to be able to work a deal. They've really taken advantage of our country for a long period of time. They've ripped us off beyond nobody. How people stood for it, sitting in my position, is not even believable. And we're talking about many presidents, not just a couple. But they did, and all we're doing is putting it back in shape. We're resetting the table. And I'm sure that we'll be able to get along very well. I have great respect for President Xi. He's been, in a true sense, he's been a friend of mine for a long period of time. And I think that we'll end up working out something that's very good for both countries. I look forward to it.
Mr. President, China retaliated today by reducing the number of American films that can be shown there. What's your reaction to them now targeting cultural exports from the United States?
I think I've heard of worse things. Yes, please.
Also on China, the Ukrainians say they have evidence that Chinese soldiers have been found fighting for the Russians in Ukraine. Can the U.S. verify this? And if so, what does the U.S. plan on doing to China to counteract that?
We'll look into it, but I think beyond that, we're really looking to get that war stopped. They're losing 2,500 and even more than that young people a week. They're Russian and they're Ukrainian. They're not American, but they're people. And we're seeing if we can get it stopped. And I think we're making progress. I appreciate the ballerina who was released. It was at the request of a very good friend of all of ours, actually. Dana White called me and he said it's the friend or the relationship of one of the fighters for UFC or one of the fighters. And Dana's an incredible guy, and we spoke to President Putin about it, and they made a deal. They released the young ballerina, and she is now out, and that was good, so we appreciate that. We hope that we're going to be able to make a deal relatively soon with Russia and Ukraine to stop the fighting. It's so senseless. It's such a horrible thing. It would have never happened if I were president, but it did happen, and we were given that card. And I think we're going to get it. I think we're going to get it stopped. Got to get going. We got to get it. We have to move it faster. Likewise with the hostages, we're making progress. We, there's 59 hostages, but only 24 of them are living, and that's the way it's been presented to me by the mothers of some of the dead, mothers and fathers of some of the dead hostages, and they want the bodies of their baby, as they say, their baby, their young boys. They want them back as much as if they were alive. It's amazing because when I met the hostages 2 weeks ago here, I couldn't believe what they had to go through, by the way. But when I met them, they said, yeah, there's 59, but 24 are living. And they actually consider, I guess if you're a parent, you do consider it this way, that the remainder who are dead, the 24 that are alive, the remainder that are dead, they want them back just as much as they would want them back if they were alive. It's really pretty amazing and pretty sad. So we're getting close to getting them back. We have a lot came back. A lot of people are very grateful. Some came back in pretty bad shape. Some came back, they're okay. I think they're going to be scarred mentally for a long time. Because if you sit down and talk to them, as I have, what they went through is incredible. But we're making progress. We're dealing with Israel. We're dealing with Hamas. And it's a nasty group.
Mr. President, so how close are you to the first country coming to actually make a deal with the United States over tariffs? Is it days, months?
Well, I think it's very close, but we have to have a deal that we like. We don't want a deal that's going to be a bad deal, or I could make every deal in one day if I wanted to. I could do this in one day. I could just say, here's what we'll do. And I was saying to the people before, to Scott, mostly to Scott and Howard, and some of the other people that work with us on the negotiations. We have a lot of law firms that have paid me a lot of money in the form of legal fees. We're going to probably use those firms to, if we can, I think we can. I'll make a contribution to the country, but they're great firms. They're the best firms, the biggest, and really the most prestigious. And we may be using them to help you guys out because you're going to need a lot of lawyers. And I'm not sure Pam's going to be happy if I say, can you send over about 200 lawyers that work on trade? She's working on criminal stuff, and I think that's going to be her focus more than anything else. So we'll find out if we can do that. But we have a lot of lawyers that you've been reading about where they paid $100 million a firm on average. Now we have the final 4 or 5 are at $125 million. So I have a lot of legal fees I could give to you people, and we might as well use them. Hopefully I won't need that many legal fees or that much. I may. Who knows? After it ends, after we leave, maybe I'll need it. But if I do, it's not going to be very pleasant. So I think we're going to try to use these very prestigious firms to help us out with the trade because we have a lot of countries. But we want to make deals that are proper for the United States, not just we can make deals easily. We want to make them proper.
Mr. President, if you aren't able to reach the deals that you want to see at the end of the 90 days, will you put those higher tariffs in place, or will you extend
Well, that's what would happen. I mean, if we can't make the deal that we want to make or we have to make or that's good for both parties, it's got to be good for both parties. And then we'd go back to where we were.
You'd go back to the numbers that you announced last week?
I think so.
You wouldn't extend the pause?
Yeah. We'll have to see what happens at that time.
Thank you, Mr. President. You said yesterday you were considering some exceptions for companies. Can you talk about what you're considering? And then also on the reciprocal tariffs, so they'd be substantially lower. Is the same math formula going to be used, or is that tossed out?
I'm not considering now for any country or company, but it's possible that I would. But I'm not. We don't have that situation right now. People understand where we are, what we're going to do. But it could happen. It's called flexibility. You have to have certain flexibility.
Mr. President, what are you planning on using the money that you're gaining from revenue through the tariffs on?
Paying down national debt, reducing taxes, creating good budgets, helping Christie with the border and all of the other things we built. I built hundreds of miles of wall, as people now understand, 571 miles of border wall in the first administration. But we're going to beef it up, and we're going to add more. And, the numbers are incredible, really. The numbers are what's taken place. We had great numbers, but these numbers are topping my last administration. And Christie and Tom Homan have done an amazing job. But it's an expensive process. This weekend, where they used to have hundreds of thousands of people standing there pouring through the border in Tijuana, Mexico. This weekend they had nobody. You had a man sweeping this massive piece of concrete, which is, the area where they said massive. And I've looked at that during the Biden administration. You couldn't see a piece of that concrete. There were so many people on it. You couldn't, if you had helicopter shots, you couldn't see concrete. Now, this weekend, you had nobody there but a man with a broom sweeping it and cleaning it up. Pretty amazing. It's really an amazing job. But it will be used for that. It'll be used for a lot of things. It'll be used by the Department of Justice for doing a great job. Pam is doing a fantastic job. So it's going to be used for a lot of different things.
Mr. President, on a 10% tariff, is that a basement? Is that the
It's a baseline.
Can countries negotiate that to bring that
It depends on what they're adding. Some countries we have massive deficits with, or they have big surpluses with us, and others it's not that way. So it depends. That's why it's really they're all different. Every country is different. Some have certain advantages that others don't have, and certain things. We have some. China has a surplus of $1 trillion. I mean, the numbers are crazy, and others have basically no surpluses. We have some that are pretty even, but they hurt us in other ways, and we just want to get that taken care of. So everyone is a little bit different.
So are you negotiating with the EU as one bloc or individual nations for the tariffs?
We're looking at it as one bloc. They've been very tough, but they were very smart. They were ready to announce retaliation, and then they heard about what we did with respect to China and others, but China. And they said, we're going to hold back a little bit. They decided to hold back. I thought they were very smart. Look, the EU is very smart, but they really have taken advantage of the United States. They were formed for the purpose of taking advantage of the United States. And I don't blame them, and I don't blame China. I don't blame anybody. I blame the people that were sitting at that desk in that other beautiful Oval Office for allowing it to happen. Many presidents I blame. They should have never allowed it to happen. And I'm doing something that a lot of them wouldn't want to do. But I'm here, I do those things, and we're going to make this country great again. We were taken advantage of by almost everybody. I sat back in the last administration. I would actually read them. I don't have to read them now. I know them so well. I would read some of these documents that were signed, deals, and I said, who would do a deal like this? Who would do it? You've seen it, Elon. Yeah. I'd look at deals where it's so one-sided. Even we have a deal with Japan, and we get along great with Japan, and we had the Prime Minister here. He was fantastic. As you know, Abe was great. Shinzo was great. He was a good friend of mine, unfortunately no longer with us. But we defend them, but they don't have to defend us. I said, that doesn't sound too good. But we have a deal, where a defense deal. We pay hundreds of billions of dollars to defend them. But if for any reason, in other words, we pay all the money. They don't pay anything. But if we're ever attacked, they don't have to do a thing to protect us. I said, oh, that sounds like a wonderful deal. So that's just one out of thousands. And I just wonder who did this. And it's people that either hate our country or didn't care, an expression that you use. I think it's really a lot of them didn't care. It's just hard to believe how bad they are. Now, that's a little bit of a defensive deal, but I'm talking about trade deals, the same thing. They're so bad, you would say, how come? And even when I'd renegotiate, like, I'd go to a country, they'd give me everything I asked for. I said, why didn't somebody ask for it, like, originally? They give me everything. I think when they were negotiating, they didn't care, or they didn't ask, or they were shy, or they were very stupid, or they hate our country. Yeah, go ahead, Jeff.
You were speaking about Japan. Can you clarify what your vision is for U.S. Steel? You referenced it yesterday.
Yeah.
There were some questions about what you actually want
Sure.
to see.
Look, U.S. Steel is going to do very well now because of tariffs. And I don't know why they even need a deal. But the only thing is U.S. Steel, if you go back 80 or 90 years, that was a behemoth in this. That was our biggest, most... If we were around, we would have been very proud of it. Today we have different types of companies that are big. Google, it's not the same as U.S. Steel. And I love Google, and I got to like the people that run it. They're very capable people. They didn't like me so much in the first administration, but they like me a lot now. I don't know what happened, but I like them. But, I think they would be the first to admit, when I envisioned, you look at some of those steel factories from 90 years ago, it was a different kind of a country, but they were miles long. Today you see just empty hulks. Those hulks are going to be filled up very soon because of what I'm doing with tariffs. It was a different kind of a thing. But if I didn't do that in the first term, my first term, if I didn't put tariffs on, we would have, because China and others were dumping steel, billions of dollars of steel. Our steel companies were all closing. We wouldn't have one steel plant open, and now we have a steel industry that's doing very well, but soon it's going to be thriving, really thriving, and those factories are going to be filled up, but more importantly, they're going to build brand new ones. Nucor and so many other companies call me, Nucor being a big steel company. They're building massive new steel plants, and it's great. And likewise, car companies. We have many, many car companies. 3 of them, I'm not looking to hurt Mexico, and I like Mexico. And by the way, I think the new president is a terrific person, a fantastic woman. We've had many conversations. She's a very elegant, just a fantastic person. And she's been very nice, very, very nice. But I'm not looking to hurt them, but we have 3 car plants that were under construction in Mexico. They stopped constructing, and now they're going to build in the United States because of tariffs. See, we should have never let this happen because whoever it was that was president at the time, we lost 90,000 plants and factories since NAFTA. 90,000. It's not believable. How about that, Laura? You know, you're in that sort of world of factories and plants.
Manufacturing, construction jobs, bring those workers back home.
That's right. We're going to bring them all back. But think of it, from that period of time, which isn't so long ago, we lost. I said the other day, if you had a map on a big wall like this, and if you had pins, 90,000, I don't know if you'd have enough. I don't think you'd have enough room on the map to put the pins. 90,000 factories that we've lost since NAFTA. And it's not even, and about 6 million jobs, but really, I think probably a lot more than that, but they say 6 million jobs. We're going to bring many of that back. I think we're going to bring more than all of it back. We're going to be better and stronger than ever before. But if a president, when they were leaving, said, look, you can leave, but if you're going to build a factory someplace else, and you think you're going to come and sell your steel or your car or any product that you make, your pharmaceuticals, which we're going to do, we're going to get them all back. But if you think you're going to all they had to do is say this, and they wouldn't have left. You know, I said it the other day. I said it with respect to, I made a speech a year ago, and I told them if I win, we're going to charge a big, big tariff at the border. And people were thinking about building in Mexico a car plant. And I said, we're going to have a big tariff. So if you want to build a car, you're going to have to pay 25% more than the cost of that car. You're going to have to pay 25% tariff at the border. They would have never left. They could have kept everybody. If a president said, if you leave this country, you leave Michigan, you leave Detroit, you leave anybody, any of our states, because to me they're all the same. I love them all. I love them all, and I probably won them all. But they say I won most of them. But I think I won them all. But that's okay. But all you had to say if you were the president is, if you leave and you think you're going to now fire all those workers, leave all that, everything behind, and you're going to build in another country and sell it any, and no, you're not going to. You're going to pay 50% or 100% tariff. They would have never left. And all you had to say, Marco, all you had to say very simply is, you don't have to write it down. All you have to do is say it verbally. If you leave, you're going to pay 100% tariff. Therefore, don't leave. They would have never left. But they left 90,000 plants. I mean, it's hard to believe that many. It's not you can't envision it. So just getting back to your, because I'm the great weaver of all time. To weave, you have to be a genius. To go on tangents, anybody can do that. But we'll get back to your original U.S. Steel. U.S. Steel is a big name in this country. It's Babe Ruth is a big name. We have a lot of big names, but not too many. U.S. Steel is one of the great names in the history of our country. And normally I wouldn't mind so much. I wouldn't be thrilled with it. But to buy for a foreign country, and we love Japan, but for a foreign country to buy that cherished U.S. Steel brand, that's hard for me to do. And maybe somebody else may want it. The company Nippon that's involved with it is a big, powerful company who do a good job. But why can't they just build a plant themselves? I mean, why do they have to, take U.S. Steel? So as you know, I rejected the deal. Now they've come back in a different form. They're coming back as an investor. And I feel better about that, I guess. But, I know them very well. I know the thinking. It's the investor. They'll invest, and somebody else maybe is sitting in this chair, and they will no longer have an investment. They'll have the whole thing. That's the way it works. Very smart. They're very, very smart people. We're dealing with very smart people throughout the world. Great geniuses, actually. Look what they've done to our country. And again, I don't blame China. I don't blame anybody. If I could have done it, if I were in that position, I'd have great respect. I have great respect for the people. They ripped off the United States, and all we had to do, have a president that knew what the hell was going on. And none of those countries would have left. Those companies, none of them would have left. So that's a little lesson in basic business. And it's really basic business. It's not complicated business. It's very basic business. and we'd have every one of those car plants going just the way they were 30 years ago. None of them would have left, but now they're coming back.
Mr. President, the Labor Department has confirmed that $400 million went to fake people for unemployment benefits.
Yeah,
What's sort of your
yeah.
initial reaction?
I think it's terrible. I just heard it from Lori, and I appreciate it, and you heard it from Elon's people, right?
That's right.
Elon's done a fantastic job. Look, he's sitting here, and I don't care. I don't need Elon for anything other than I happen to like him. But I'm telling you, this guy did a fantastic job. I don't need his car. I actually bought one and they said, "Oh, did you get a bargain?" No. I said, "Give me the top price." I paid a lot of money for that car. But honestly, he makes a great car. You know what I do with it? I let the people in the office drive around in it. Margot and Natalie, and they're all Chamberlain. They're all driving around the most beautiful car. It's gorgeous. But I did that as a sign of just a show of support. Numerous people have done that. Just a show of support, because he's done a fantastic job, but he hasn't been treated properly. Hasn't been treated properly. Yeah.
Mr. President, can you talk to us about your communications with China? Has President Xi reached out at all since the tariff?
Well, I don't want to say who's reached out. I just say that I think it's going to work out, hopefully well.
Including TikTok?
They're very big. It's hard to get over, if you're me, what they've done to our country. They've destroyed our economic base to a large extent. The good news is we're very vibrant, and we're going to get it back fast. We already have. Look, we're making $2 billion a day now, and during Biden, we were losing $3 billion a day. Biden was a disaster. He was the worst president in the history of our country. And to me, worse than that, because the money you can make if you have the right guy in this position, worse than that was what they did on the border. By allowing the jails of the world, not South America, all over the world, to be opened up so that we take everybody from Africa, Asia, South America, Europe, the bad ones. They opened up their jails and they dumped them in the United States. And now this beautiful young woman who seems to be, boy, she loves what she does, though. I think she loves what she does because she's a patriot. She hates to see it. And Tom and all the people. But for us to spend, hundreds of billions of dollars this is just, I don't know. They either hated the country. Who would do this? Who would want millions of people to pour through an open border? We have no idea who the hell they are. And just walk right through. And half of them, whether you like it or not, you could look at them and you could say, they are not going to help us. These are some rough people. But they'd empty out their jails, and they'd empty out their mental institutions, insane asylums, and they let them into the United States of America. And inflation we can fix, and all of the other things we can fix. We'll get it going. But this is something, it's such a horrible thing. And it's really hard. We have to do deportations. Now we're doing self-deportation. We're coming up with all sorts of ideas. And they must have known it's not going to work out well. And, we want people to come into our country, by the way. We need them badly for the jobs. But we want them to come in legally. They have to come in legally. They have to show that they can love our country. Thank you very much, everybody. Thank you. Thank you very much.
The Democrats making allegations about market manipulation yesterday.
Thank you.
Just some recap on that great cabinet meeting. First and foremost, how amazing is our cabinet? They're outstanding, truly the greatest, most transparent, most competent in history, with Republicans, Democrats, former Democrats, independents alike, making America healthy again, making America transparent again, and most of all, making America great again. Think about this. Jamieson Greer, the U.S. Trade Representative, sharing with President Trump, AutoPen Biden left over $1 trillion, $1.4 trillion in trade deficits for the United States, the most in history. The RFK files coming out, along with the MLK files, the JFK files, already released by DNI, Tulsi Gabbard. This is per President Trump's executive orders, along with Crossfire Hurricane. Pam Bondi, the Attorney General, addressing the fact that people will go to jail, that maximum penalty for up to 20 years plus for attacking private property, specifically these Tesla attacks. President Trump talking about how impressed he is with Elon Musk, and the fact that Lori Chavez-Remer, the labor secretary, stating that of the billions of waste of people, money going to people that are over 115 years old by the books, there's also been $41,000 in payments to those yet to be born. So what is going on in our federal government, left to us by the deep state globalists of the auto pen? My goodness, so much being done on a daily basis, working overtime to save this country. Kalshi.com/RSBN, a great sponsor here at the network. Questions like, when will Bitcoin hit 150,000 in investments? Well, will that happen before 2026? How about before this October, or even before summertime, before America's birthday? Scan the QR code now for live trades and bets. Anything you could bet on, from different live events to politics, culture, sports, whatever it might be. It's actually rather fun. So scan that QR code now at Kalshi, KALSHI.com/RSBN. Kalshi, thank you for sponsoring us here at Right Side Broadcasting Network. Of course, the Chinese Communist Party not backing down. They will ultimately lose this battle on tariffs with the United States because President Trump is tougher than ever. Secretary Bessent of the Treasury touching on this today during the cabinet meeting regarding the success that has already been seen with the Chinese tariffs. Regardless of what happens there, you need Colonial Metals Group, the great sponsor here at Right Side Broadcasting Network, with Paul Stone, the CEO, who I recently spoke to last month. He comes on the show often as well to talk about properties, assets, 401ks, and IRAs, all things that can be rolled into time-tested, tangible metals like gold and silver. Since 1971, gold has skyrocketed over 7,000%. So shield your savings now by going to freegoldguide.com/RSBN. And right there you have the no obligation guide that patriots like Judge Jeanine Pirro, among others, have all endorsed. Colonial Metals Group, truly the greatest in the gold and silver game. Get yours today. Do not delay. This is something you need to send those great young patriots of yours to universities like Auburn right behind me, or even the things you need in order to prepare for retirement. So thank you to Colonial Metals Group, and heed the warning of Warren Buffett, among other billionaires, those investments going into the stock market and gold and silver. Thank you for sponsoring us, Colonial Metals Group at Right Side Broadcasting Network. So lots of interesting news today as we follow the latest from the Trump White House. Always good to get that in-depth information from the cabinet in real time, along with taking questions from the press. And that one right off the top, that China is not watching our media and banning our movies in the communist country that was once a great civilization, but sadly the communists dominating the day in China. And President Trump said, I think there have been more disasters than that in the past. So it's sad that people have to live under such a repressive regime, but that's why here in America we stand firm to our constitutional principles, liberty and justice for all, and we will see through this mission to make manufacturing great again in this nation, export more than we import, protecting our national security, and in turn helping our middle class and our blue-collar workers to build the greatest economy again. This is truly our moment. It's our golden era. Also, Senator Ashley Moody of the Sunshine State of Florida introducing legislation to ban visas and guest worker programs specifically for Chinese foreign nationals, and especially those who seek to be students on our campuses. We know this, that they are instructed by the Chinese Communist Party to gather information. We've seen this with the different Confucius institutes on campus, many that have been shut down. They are dragnets to spy on you and me and the rest of the American people. The Chinese Communist Party committed to taking down this great nation. It is truly the Red Dragon, and they must be stopped in order for international security and the future of Western civilization. President Trump and Premier Xi are in the battle of a lifetime. Both men formidable, both men, I think, respect each other, but both men coming from very different belief systems. One believes in freedom, liberty, and justice for all. The other one is an evil tyrant. It's very simple. Like President Reagan said during the USSR days, we win, they lose. There's no in between. And that's what we're seeing happening right now. And according to Secretary of the Treasury, Scott Bessent, they can't hold up against the economic engine that is the United States. So be cool, as President Trump said on Truth Social, remain with the program, because at the end of the day, we'll get this done for the American people. We have some great videos to toss to regarding President Trump's week and what he's done at the White House, sharing on Truth Social. We could share, actually, the FCS champion, the North Dakota State University, with football. Of course, with the restructuring of all of football, this is Division I AA is what they used to call it. So this team had a moment with President Trump just yesterday in the East Room, and we could toss it there now. President Trump also believes in the American dream. He has done so for years and years. And one of my favorite part of not only the narratives of the 45th and 47th Commander-in-Chief in the White House, it's his days that prepped him and prepared him literally a lifetime for this great role of being the CEO of America. And that is, of course, being President of the United States. But what prepped him? Don't you love to hear the stories of the people who knew him way back when? Here's a gentleman who started from nothing, another Queens boy who decided to take on the financial industry, and telling us a story to Eric Trump specifically that President Trump gave him that shot way back when.
Well, if it's okay with you, I'd love to give your dad a shout out. I know it's not part of our interview, but you know, Mr. President, 1998, doubt you're going to remember, Burlington Capital, 59th floor of 40 Wall Street. Nobody believed in me. I was an entrepreneurial kid from Queens, New York, no balance sheet, and you backed me. You gave Joe DeSena and I, now Spartan Races, Joe, the shot, and that propelled me, my family, created an entrepreneurial company that we were able to exit, and really was the epitome of you believing in entrepreneurs, giving the little guy the chance, and always wanted to say a thank you. So at this point, thank you from my family and so many other entrepreneurs who I know you quietly have helped over the years. Eric, thank you so much for joining, and thank you, Vince. Thank you for allowing me to share that moment for your dad.
Beautiful story.
Thank you, sir.
Thanks, my friend.
I love stories like that. I just can relate to it when you are sometimes trying to make that dream happen. You turn it into goals, you write it down, and you keep going after it. And I'd like to encourage you today, those viewers, whatever it is, it doesn't matter if you're 18, if you're 89, or somewhere in between. If there's something on your heart, go after it. Because if it's something that's brewing and festering that can help people, and you have that skill set and that mentality to make a difference, why not go after it? There's one life to live, there's one shot. And in turn, you'll never work a day in your life if you love what you do. You know, just calling and texting with friends, colleagues, and people from, who know me, this journey that I've had. Always wonderful to share that reminder, even for me and for friends who are going after those specific goals. Never quit. President Trump talks about it all the time. He's seen it so much that people just stop short when they have that last moment. They're on Mount Everest, but they can't make just that last climb. It's about perseverance, and this is the time for that. It's a golden era in this country, so why not go after it? Just do it, like Nike says, right? But another thing President Trump worked on this week, the fight for clean coal and that executive order, hosting these great workers at the White House, these blue-collar gentlemen who have built this great nation. And we could share that White House video that President Trump shared on his Truth Social.
Today we're taking historic action to help American workers, miners, families, and consumers. We're ending Joe Biden's war on beautiful clean coal once and for all. We're going to put the miners back to work under the executive order that I will sign in a few moments. We're slashing unnecessary regulations that targeted the beautiful clean coal. We will rapidly expedite leases for coal mining on federal land, streamline permitting. We will end the government bias against coal, and we're going to unlock the sweeping authorities of the Defense Production Act to turbocharge coal mining in America. Pound for pound, coal is the single most reliable, durable, secure, and powerful form of energy there is on Earth today. The value of untapped coal in our country is 100 times greater than the value of all the gold at Fort Knox. And we're going to unleash it and make America rich and powerful again. Together we're going to tap that magnificent potential to give our people the glorious future that they deserve.
Let's be energy independent once again. President Trump making sure of that with the liquid gold under our feet, whether it's natural gas, clean coal, or that beautiful oil that from sea to shining sea, so much of it abundant in this great God-blessed nation that is the United States of America. Thank you for joining us here at Right Side Broadcasting Network Live. I'm Robert McNeely as we cover the latest from the Trump White House. Thank you to our sponsors, freetrumpbook.com, Ambassador Mike Huckabee, bringing you all of these great guides for the young patriots in your life, whether it be the Kid's Guide to President Trump or the Kid's Guide to the Courage of President Trump. How about the monumental moments in American history that God called up, not necessarily the qualified, but he called up those that could serve his purpose, his nation. And he truly does qualify the called. And in this, you can learn so many of our brilliant stories from 250 years ago and to the Civil War, to present day, with everything that matters, including our constitutional documents, our Declaration of Independence, and why we share in the values of this great land. For your young patriots at home and also for those neighbors who are not paying attention, it's the freetrumpbook.com, brought to you by Mike Huckabee and his team, the great ambassador to the state of Israel. Thank you for your sponsorship here at Right Side Broadcasting Network. We also love mypillow.com/RSBN, the My Mattress Topper sale going on right now. Limited time offer, only $99.99. Promo code RSBN for mypillow.com. 800-836-7566. Call today. Do not delay. Made in the U.S. of A. Call 800-836-7566. It's mypillow.com/RSBN. Up to 2,000 items for up to 50% off of everything. The My Mattress Topper sale. Thank you to Mike Lindell, a great American patriot. And of course, we have also, Mr. Director, it kind of went blank there. Oh, the Colonial Metals Group, of course. The gold and silver, a great opportunity for you and yours to be a bet and a hedge against inflation. And the best way to do that, gold and silver. Paul Stone, the amazing CEO here at Colonial Metals Group, sponsoring Right Side Broadcasting Network. They are the best in the business. Judge Janine Pirro, among other great patriots, sponsoring Colonial Metals Group and sharing why you need gold and silver. So go to freegoldguide.com/RSBN. China using a trade war against Taiwan and the United States right now, also playing war games along that beautiful independent island. They're doing it for a reason, because Taiwan, we have fair trade deals that take care of the different things that go into this beautiful computer known as your iPhone, whether it's chips, minerals, things of that nature. They are independent, they are free. We hope it stays that way because it benefits Western civilization. But we know that with China's antics, it can affect global markets. So what's the best thing you can do besides properties, assets, of course, a 401k or IRA and savings? Well, it's gold and silver. Gold has only gone up 7,000% since 1971 when the Nixon administration went off of the gold standard. So whether it's sending your great young patriot students to Auburn University behind me, or you're preparing for retirement, gold and silver are a must. And the only group for that, Colonial Metals Group. Thank you to Paul Stone and his team for sponsoring us here at Right Side Broadcasting Network Live. Now, if we have any live action, any breaking news, you know where to go to. Of course, it's here at the live desk at Right Side Broadcasting Network. And there's a live shot of Auburn University. Going back towards the other direction, to Toomer's Corner. So that's where you get to throw all of the teepee when there is a massive victory on this campus. I've done it on a couple of occasions myself with my dear friend and colleague, Mr. Matthew Alvarez, also his beautiful wife, Jenna, and family members who have come to celebrate all that is Auburn University. It's truly the premier campus in the United States. And you know what they say about the SEC? It's just bigger here. And I can tell you, Auburn truly number one in our hearts and minds today, as we hope you're enjoying a beautiful spring day. It's around 70 degrees here. It feels like, a little less humidity. So as we gear up towards summertime in the southeast, it gets a little bit warm down here, but it's beautiful, unlike any other place in our great nation. So we hope you are enjoying this beautiful, is it Thursday? It's Thursday in the United States of America, April 10th, 2025. Happy first day of competition and regulation for the Masters. We hope you get to watch with your family and friends. Of course, many of the men and the golfers in the room, I'm sure you're not really paying attention at work today. Get the job done, of course, but get ready to bring out those pimento cheese sandwiches, those egg salad sandwiches, those azalea drinks, and get ready to spend a lovely weekend with you and yours, the loved ones in your life, to watch what is the premier tournament in golf this weekend in Augusta, Georgia. But for every America First update and exclusive offer here at the network, just sign on to rsbnetwork.com/newsletter. And that's where you can find all of the great writers and the great in-depth analysis of every issue affecting you and yours, whether it's inside of the Beltway, outside of the Beltway. This is your go-to, rsbnetwork.com/newsletter. And if you're kind enough to donate, thank you, because we are citizen journalists here at Right Side Broadcasting Network. And you just go to rsbnetwork.com/donate. You can also text RSBN to 801-801. That's RSBN to 801-801. Thank you, whether it's $20, $200, anything in between. We deeply appreciate it, because it is David versus Goliath. It is the new media era. It is conservative media. It is common sense media. Whatever you want to call it, it is not controlled. I love those reels of the big corporations where you see people who are great people in my line of work, colleagues, good people as well, but the repeated script over and over and over. There's no teleprompter here. We give it to you, opinion, analysis, heartbreaking news, and also straightforward, the entirety of meetings like you just saw with the cabinet hearing. Great exclusive interviews with congressmen. Of course, Rod Blum today from Iowa, really analyzing not only his days in Congress, but what he sees on the ground right now in real time. There's no other network quite like it. We give you the full speeches of President Trump, Vice President Vance, and also the House Speaker Mike Johnson and his 119th Congress. Whether it's inside or outside of the Beltway, we are there for you. So if you have a story that's America First related, please feel free to share at feedback@rsbn.tv. That's feedback@rsbn.tv. For my colleagues here at Right Side Broadcasting Network, stick with us as we bring you unbridled access to President Trump and to the issues that matter to you and your families most. In fact, Secretary Kennedy mentioning today during that cabinet meeting that he will likely have an answer through Health and Human Services, the links to autism, why it's happening at such a rapid rate. If you watch that meeting, this cabinet is committed to the American people, finding those answers and literally putting their life, liberty, sacred honor on the line for this great country. It's a time-tested value as old as this great constitutional republic, literally 250 years in the making, and we are at the front row of history here on the right side of history at Right Side Broadcasting Network. Again, for my colleagues, I'm Robert McNeely. Enjoy Masters Thursday. We'll see you tomorrow, unless there's any breaking news. You know where to turn. RSBN. God bless. Good afternoon. We will see you very soon.
Welcome to Right Side Broadcasting Network, your trusted conservative news outlet. At RSBN, we deliver the truth when the mainstream media falls short. Since 2015, we've proudly broadcasted every single one of President Trump's iconic MAGA rallies, bringing you the excitement and energy live before anyone else. By watching RSBN, you get an unfiltered front row view of the action on the ground. We interview the crowds to give a voice to millions of Americans just like you. We show you President Trump's speeches in their entirety, free from interruptions and censorship. We cover the stories that matter to you with the integrity and passion you deserve. Thank you for choosing RSBN as your home for America First News. Together, we stand strong, united, and informed. So join us and be part of the right side of history.
President Trump is keeping his promises and saving America. And your kids can learn all about it for free with a new Kids Guide to President Trump. This fun guide shows kids all the steps President Trump is taking to put America back on top of the world stage, including building a strong economy, protecting our borders, and negotiating trade deals. It's an exciting way for kids to learn about President Trump's outstanding leadership. Act now and get a free bonus guide, The Courage of the President. Order now at freetrumpbook.com. That's freetrumpbook.com.
Hey y'all, it's Silk from the Diamond and Silk Chit Chat live show. Look, don't forget to check me out right here on RSBN Network. Be sure to watch the show on Right Side Broadcasting Network, and I want you to support Right Side Broadcasting Network. Yes, it's imperative that you do so, okay? I look to see y'all soon. Bye-bye.
I hear every day about the products you all wish MyPillow carried. Well, guess what? We probably do. Slippers, bathrobes, pet beds, blankets, mattresses, sleepwear, loungewear, duvets, comforters, pot holders, aprons, oven mitts, and so much more. And they're all on sale. For example, get our best-selling standard MyPillows for only $14.98. Body pillows, $29.98. 6-piece bath towels or kitchen towel sets, just $29.98. Multi-use MyPillow 2.0s with pillowcase, $9.98. Save $40 on our Spring Percale and Giza Dream bedsheet sets. Any size, any color, and so much more. So go to MyPillow.com or call the number on your screen. Use your promo code to save up to 80% on all MyPillow products. And I've never done this before. When you spend $100 or more, you're going to get 2 standard MyPillows absolutely free.